The Zoom people, you can just let me know if my audio and video is fine. And we'll start, yeah? Yeah? Just 1 second. Okay. So today we'll wrap up the Companies Act. Okay. So mainly we are focusing on, quickly we'll take 10 minutes to revise the Companies Act and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. And then we'll move on to the next part. Today we'll majorly focus on finishing all the doctrines. Okay. Which is the main important part of the Companies Act, which can be tested, and then we'll wrap up. Before we go on to today's topic, let's just do a quick revision of what we did in the last class, right? So last class, we started with what is the first section in Companies Act. So the Companies Act 2013, section number 1 talks about 4 important things. It talks about short title, extent, applicability, and commencement, right? People attending through the Zoom, you'll have to keep putting your comments on the chat box so that I know you're able to hear, okay, and everything is fine. Okay, so short title of any act is the name of the act. So it starts with the Companies Act 2013, and whenever you quote any act, your first letter should always be in capital, okay, and then extend this to which places and all it is applicable. The Companies Act 2013 is applicable to the whole of India, and applicability is it applies to all types of companies, and the last is the commencement is on the 29th of August. It was signed by the president, and on the 38th of August it was notified. Is it clear, guys? The first section number 1, not so important. Next, moving on to what is a company. What is a company? A company is defined under section 2 clause 20. A company means a company that is incorporated under this act or any other previous company law, right? Here, when we use the word means, it says that the definition is an exhaustive definition. And when we say that it is incorporated under this act or any other previous company law, this act means it should be either incorporated under the Companies Act 2013 or any other previous company law, such as the Companies Act 1956. Right? And then the difference between the word means and includes. Whenever definition starts with the word means, it is an inclusive definition. And whenever it starts with means, it is an exhaustive definition, and whenever it starts with the word includes, it is an inclusive definition. Right? Next up is the difference between a company and a foreign company. A foreign company is defined under section 2 clause 42. It says that foreign company means a company that is incorporated outside India, having a place of business in India, either physically or electronically or through an agent, or it functions through an agent. Next is an exception point that Companies Act is not applicable only to companies. It will also apply to a non-company, provided they satisfy how many conditions? They satisfy 2 conditions. The first condition is it should be a body corporate, and the central government should have notified that the Companies Act applies to it. Currently, there are 2 examples for that, the FCI and the NHAI. Next is, what is a body corporate? A body corporate is basically any entity that has the following feature. A body corporate is any entity that has the following feature. What are the features? It should have perpetual succession. It should have a separate legal entity. It has a right to use the common seal. It can acquire, hold, and dispose of movable and immovable or tangible and intangible properties. Right? Are all companies body corporates? Yes, but are all body corporates companies? The answer is no, right? And then moving on to this example which we saw earlier, moving on to important definitions. First, we look at our table since we have completed all types of companies. So this is the exhaustive table of different types of companies that are there. First is based on the number of members. The companies are either a one-person company, private company, or a public company. Then based on liability, it is either a company limited by guarantee or company limited by shares or an unlimited company. And then based on control, you have an holding company, you have a subsidiary company, and you have an associate company. And based on size, there is a small company. A small company is a special type of Public or a private company? A small company is a special type of private company. A small company is a special type of private company. And then based on origin, company is classified as either a foreign company or an Indian company. Then based on ownership, the company can be either an government company or a non-government company. Then based on its status, it can be either an active company or a dormant company. And then we have based on listing, it is a listed or an unlisted company. And the last is the special type of company such as a startup or a Nidhi company or an IFSC company, right? These are the broad classifications. Now we'll quickly look into the detailed definitions which are important from the examination point of view. The first definition that we saw was section 2 clause 68, a private company. A private company means a company having such amount of paid up share capital as may be prescribed and which by its article should do three things. R for it should restrict the transfer of shares. So does that mean that you can never transfer shares in a private company? No, you cannot freely transfer the shares. You can transfer the shares provided you have the permission of the company. It is not freely transferable. There is a restriction. It is not freely transferable. There is a restriction. It limits the number of members to 200. The maximum number of members that can be in a private company is 200. Are joint holders counted as 2 or 1? They are counted as 1. Then if a member is an employee cum shareholder, will you count him in the 200 limit? You will not count him in the 200 limit. Once he leaves the organization, now will you count him in the 200 limit? Even now he is not going to be counted in the 200 limit, right? So that is the restriction, limitation. And the last is it prohibits. It prohibits from what? Prohibits from inviting the public to subscribe to the shares of the company, right? So that is the definition of a private company. Next we saw the definition of a public company. A public company is a company which is not a private company, not a very important definition, but the proviso is important. If a public company has a subsidiary which is a private company, then the private company is a deemed public company, right? So this is proviso is only important in this particular definition. Then moving on to one person company, which we will discuss in detail in today's class. In one person company, there's only one person who is the member. In a one person company, there's only one person who is a member. And then comes to different type of company by their liability. First is company limited by guarantee. In company limited by guarantee, the liability is limited only to the amount of guarantee. Can I call that amount of at any time or only during the process of winding up? Only during the process of winding up. I can call the amount only during the process of winding up. But however, if it is a company limited by shares, can I call the amount at any time during the life or winding up? Yes, I can call the amount at any time during the life or winding up. And then comes a last type of company which is quite infamous. We do not form such type of company, which is a unlimited company. In this company, the liability of the members are unlimited. However, in all the three types of companies, the liability of company is always unlimited. When you study company limited by guarantee, or it is company limited by shares, or it is company, or it is an unlimited company, the liability of the company is always unlimited. Only the liability of members will change depending on what type of company is being formed. Right, so that is also done. And next we looked into what is a holding company. A holding company is a company which has one or more subsidiaries, right? Now this is not a very significant definition. We'll read the definition of a subsidiary company. A company is called as a subsidiary when another company is either controlling its composition of board of directors or has more than 50% of voting power. Very important, more than 50% of voting power. On the contrary of this, when we read the definition of a government company, a company is called as a government company if either the state government or the central government or partly state and partly central government holds together more than 51%, holds together more than 51% of what? Voting power or paid up share capital? If it is a government company, then it is a paid up share capital, right? If it's a government company, it is paid up share capital, right? So we look into the definition also, just so that you don't get confused between subsidiary and holding, subsidiary and government, right? Next, we studied layers of subsidiary. Let's say A has a subsidiary B, B has a subsidiary C. C will automatically become the subsidiary of A. This is called layers of subsidiary. Okay, so subsidiary also we did. A company is called as an associate company when you hold more than how much? More than 20% up to 50%. Because if you hold more than 50%, you become the holding. If you have more than 20% but up to 50%, then you become the associate company. And the company which is holding more than 20 and up to 50 will be called as an investing company, right? So these are different types of companies. Then coming to an important type of company, which is a special type of a private company. It is a special type of a private company, is a small company. A small company means a private company whose paid up share capital should not exceed 4 crores and whose turnover should not exceed 40 crores. What will happen if any one of the condition is violated? It will only have the status of private company. It will lose the status of a small company. There are three types of companies which can never become a small company. What are they? First is in case you are a Section 8 company. In case you are a Section 8 company. What is a Section 8 company? A company which has been formed for, not for profit organization, but you remember we studied three groups that are there in your class 12. It is being formed for purposes such as commerce, arts or science, sports, education or research, or others you can just keep writing, okay? So in case you are any of those type of companies, Section 8 company, can you get the special status of a small company? You can never get, because already Section 8 has a lot of relaxation, so you should not get double benefits, so you cannot get the benefits of a small company. A holding and subsidiary relationship can also never claim the status of a small company. And lastly, a company that is governed by a special statute like the LIC can also not get the status of a small company. Next, moving on to a government company, Section 2, Clause 45. We have already discussed what a government company is. So I'm moving forward. Okay, having more than 51% of the voting power or paid up share capital. Paid up share capital, right? Now moving on to the discussion that we actually started in yesterday's class was a Section 8 company. Section 8 company, meaning we have already discussed, they are formed for purposes such as commerce, arts, sports, education, research or social welfare, and they need not use the abbreviation behind their name. What abbreviations they need not use? A limited or private limited abbreviation use panna thevalla. If I need to form a Section 8 company, do I have a normal incorporation process or I need to get something special? Something special. What's the special thing called? License. You need a license to run a Section 8 company. Who will issue this license? Central government, correct? Central government is a generic answer. In central government, to whom should I apply? ROC. You have to apply to the ROC. And who can cancel the license? Exactly, RD can cancel the license. What does RD stand for? Regional Director. So the Regional Director can cancel the license, right? When will they cancel license? If they come to know that you have done any of the following. Either you have done any fraud, or you have violated the objectives of a Section 8 company, or you are not functioning as per whatever you wrote. You got the license saying that you are going to give free education, but if you are not doing that and the regional director comes to know about it, they can cancel your license. If they cancel your license, what are the remedies that you have to do? What are the next steps? You have to either go and amalgamate yourself with a Section 8 company with a similar objective, or they can ask you to. You need to convert yourself into either a private or a public company, or you have to go for the proceedings of winding up. You have to close your company, right? But before doing all of that, what will the regional director give you? An opportunity of being heard. Your side of the story will also be heard. Okay, so that is all about a Section 8 company. Moving to a next special type of company, which is defined in Section 455, a dormant company. A dormant company is a company which is incorporated for any future project or holding any intellectual properties. It does not do any significant transactions. But can it do some normal transactions? Yes. What are the normal transactions? For example, paying an audit fees or paying administration charges or paying any fees to the ROC. These are considered to be non-significant transactions. If I do this, will I lose my status of dormant company? No, I will not lose my status of dormant company. I can still do that, right? Dormant company is one company which is either formed for future and the money. Otherwise, if you do one more thing also, you will get the status of dormant company. If you have not filed your financial statements or annual returns consecutively for a period of 2 years, if you do not file them, then also you will become an inactive or a dormant company, right? And the last type of company that we studied was section 406, a Nidhi company. A Nidhi company is basically a company which is being formed with an objective to do cost cutting, or in which the members will pull out money together and we will lend to the members itself, right? That is a Nidhi company, not so important. And then coming to a listed company, this is an important definition. Section 2 clause 52 says that listed company is a company whose securities are listed in any of the recognized stock exchanges. But now this is in simple definition. The exception part is very, very important here. If you are a company whose only non-convertible debentures are being listed, are you a listed company? No, you are not a listed company. Only if your non-convertible debentures are listed, you are not a listed company. Only your redeemable preference shares are being listed. Are you a listed company? No, you will not be considered as a listed company. That is what is the exception all about. I hope you understood the exceptions, right? Next, moving on to the features of a company. The first important feature of a company is a feature of a separate legal entity. Separate legal entity means the company is different and the members of the company is different. The important case law for this is Mercury versus Northern Assurance Company, in which what did Mercury do? He went and took an insurance of the goods of the company. The company was a company which basically produces furnitures or something from timber. So he took an insurance for the timber, but the timber belongs to the company. So when there was a fire that was caught in a warehouse and all the timber was destroyed, and he went to claim the insurance company said that they are not liable to pay any amount of insurance. It is because the insurance was taken in his own name and not in the name of the company. Are you able to understand? So this is one case law in case they ask you anything related to a separate legal entity. Another important feature of a company is a perpetual succession. Perpetual succession means the company will continue irrespective of whether the members are the same or they keep changing. The company will continue perpetually. And next, coming to the most important concept of the Companies Act is the corporate veil theory. The corporate veil theory says that the company and the owners are different, and there is a veil, there is a curtain between the company and its owner. But can this curtain be lifted? Yes. In case of certain exceptions, this curtain can be lifted. One of the exceptions that we read of this was to protect the revenue or tax. There's a standard case law for this called the Dinshaw Manikji patent, where in order to protect himself from paying extra tax, he opened some shell companies and he diverted his investment. But when the court came to know about it, they lifted the corporate veil and they told that Dinshaw and the company are the same people, and hence the revenue of the company belongs to Dinshaw and he has to pay the tax. That is to protect the revenue. I can lift the corporate veil. Or in case any company tried to use this concept to avoid legal obligations. The case law for this that we studied was the employees of the Associate Rubber Company versus the Associate Rubber Company, where there was a policy saying that if the company earns more profit, they are supposed to give more bonus to the employees. But the managing directors or the top management did not want to give bonus. So to show lesser profit, they diverted the profit to other companies. But when the court came to know about it, they told that the company is the other companies where this profit is being diverted, that company and the existing associate company are the same, because the members in both the companies are same, and the purpose for forming these other companies was only to divert the profits and to show a reduced profit. So because they tried to do this, we told that this is an exception to corporate veil and we are going to lift the corporate veil and you have to pay the bonus amount, right? And next is formation of subsidiaries to act as agent. We did not cover this point in the last class, so we will do it now. Just let me know, is the revision so far clear? The people attending it through the Zoom live, let me know if the revision so far. Are you clear? Yeah, you should have at least revised it once, okay? And I hope you guys did yesterday's question. Did you guys do yesterday's practice question? That was, I think, related to section 8, right? I'll upload the answer for that today. Okay, I'll upload the answer for that today. But I hope you guys did yesterday's question. Okay. Cool. Okay, moving on to this, today we want to wrap up Companies Act, okay, because tomorrow I don't think I have a class and you have a SAP on Sunday. So today we'll quickly wrap it up. Corporate veil or a fourth point says that this is an exception to corporate veil. That means in the mari yarada or company vandu form aayirke edo subsidiary you have formed just to act as your agent abdina, we will lift the corporate veil and we will tell the subsidiary and the members are the same people. What happened in this particular case law? The name of the case law is Merchandise Transport Limited versus British Transport Commission. Okay, in the case law, previously in British and all, what you need a particular license to run the transport company. Okay, and this particular transport company, they applied to get the license, but their license got rejected. What happened to their license? Their license got rejected. So because a company license reject apply the license rejected is rejected. Okay, so what they thought was, okay, ennoda company oda license dana reject aayirukku. What I will do is I will form a subsidiary, and through the subsidiary I'll apply for the license. So they did that and they got the license. But then when the department came and looked, they understood that the subsidiary and the holding has the same members. That is, who are the board of directors in the holding company? The same people are the board of directors in the subsidiary company. Just because their license got declined or their license got rejected in holding, they are forming the subsidiary and indirectly they are getting the license. So which is wrong? So what did they do? They lifted the corporate veil and they told that the company and the members are same, so hence your license will be invalid. Are you able to understand, guys? Here, are you able to understand, the Zoom people? What is exactly happening here? Basically, there was a company who wanted to get a transport license. They applied for the transport license, but their transport license got rejected. Because their company's license got rejected, these people went and they formed a subsidiary, and through the subsidiary, they applied for a license which got accepted. But when the transport department came to know that this subsidiary company has the same members as the one sitting in the holding, they said, no, we are going to lift the corporate veil. The members and the company is same, hence the license will be completely cancelled, right? So this is when you form a subsidiary to act as your agent. Inga vande in the subsidiary company form pannadukku edavadhu or purpose irundha? No, the subsidiary is only acting as the agent of the holding to get the license. So we told such things cannot work. We are going to cancel your license and lift the corporate veil. And the last is when the company formed for fraud or improper conduct or defeat. The same similar case law is happening here also. They formed a subsidiary company and they were doing frauds through the subsidiary company. So if we come to know that any fraud is happening, a lot of people ask me, right, why Kingfisher or Nirav Modi, why we are not able to catch these people? You have to prove in the court that actually they were behind the fraud. Okay, in Kingfisher and all, those guys have good lawyers, right? So in court, it's not what is right or wrong. It is as per law, you should be able to. For example, you would have seen a lot of movies. You know who has committed the crime, but because you don't have an evidence, you leave that person, right? So same thing works in court also. Only you can lifting this corporate veil is a huge concept as per law. If this particular case goes to the Supreme Court and all, it's a huge concept. So you can't just simply say I'll lift the corporate veil. Proof you should actually prove that the director was behind during all this fraud. So just because they couldn't prove it in some of these scam cases, for example like Kingfisher and all, these people escaped and they flee away. Are you able to understand? So in the 5 conditions, what we can do, we can lift the corporate veil and tell that the members and the company is the same. Okay. Next, formation of a company, I'll come a little later because that's very procedural part. Okay. We'll move to what is important concepts in one-person company. Okay, in one-person company, there are some important concepts. We'll finish that and then we will move to the procedural part of how do you form a company, that spice form and all of that. We'll move a little later. Okay, so first in a one-person company, you need to remember there is only one person who is a member. This is the basics that we have already studied. But what will you do in case that one person dies or that one person becomes insolvent? In a contract act, you would have studied, no, for a person to enter into a contract, he should be of sound mind. He should be of the age of majority. If something goes wrong, like say it becomes of an unsound mind, or he dies, or he becomes insolvent, appo who will be the member? Appdingathukkaga, whenever you form a one-person company, it is compulsory you have somebody called a nominee. You have somebody called a nominee. In case tomorrow something happens to a member, who will step instead of the member? The nominee will step instead of the member. So it is very, very important for a one-person company. Whenever they form, இப்போ நீ one-person company ஒரு form fill பண்ணி submit பண்றனா, அந்த formல என்ன கேக்குனா, நீ member, அப்ப nominee யாருங்கறதையும் நீ எழுதணும். If for example I say Deepika, I am the member of that particular one-person company, I need to appoint XYZ person as the nominee. அப்படி நீ nominee யாராவது கொடுக்கலனா, உன்னால அந்த form MCA websiteல submit பண்ண முடியாது. The form won't get accepted. It will get rejected. Okay, so one-person company should always have a nominee, and this nominee cannot be an artificial person. Cannot be an artificial person. Now, what do I mean by an artificial person? It cannot be another company. It cannot be another company. If you did not understand this, what is this artificial person or anything, I'll just clear some more points so that you get more clarity on this. Now, let's say, can I, as an individual person, buy shares of Reliance? Yes. Now, can, let's say, Tata Motors, okay, it's a company. Is Tata Motors a company? Yes. Is it an artificial person? Yes. Tata Motors, it is an. Now, let's say I am buying shares of Reliance. Now, let's say KSA. Private Limited, can they also buy shares of Reliance? If I buy the shares of Reliance, I become a shareholder. If they buy, they will also become a shareholder. Shareholder is nothing but member. I hope you all know that. Right? Shareholder is member nu solvom. Now tell me, I am a natural person. This is an artificial person. Are you now understanding the difference between who's a natural and an artificial person? Yes. Now, what the Companies Act says is, in case you have a nominee in an OPC, in case you have a nominee in an OPC, that nominee can never be a artificial person. Because it logically makes sense, right? இப்போ வந்து நாமினியே நம்ம ஏன் வைக்கிறோம்? இப்போ இந்த மெம்பருக்கு அந்த one member யார் இருக்கானோ, if he dies or he becomes an insolvent, அவனோட பிளேஸ்ல யாரோ ஒருத்தவங்க ஸ்டெப் பண்ணும். If that is an artificial person, how will he come? Are you able to understand? That's why the Companies Act clearly says that nominee can be anyone but not an artificial person, right? So if you read now, I think you'll be able to appreciate it better. He should be a natural person. The nominee should be a natural person, or he should be, I think, or I'll just check. I think it's and it should be. I think it should be and. I think it's a clerical error. Okay. It should be a natural person and a citizen of India. There's a difference between a citizen and a resident. When I say I'm a citizen of India, that is different versus when I say I'm a resident of India. Anybody knows what's the difference? Okay. Okay. Is there anybody in Zoom? What is the difference between, it's correct, what you said was partially correct, yes. What is the difference between a resident and a citizen? Okay, you will study this meaning resident and citizen more clearly when you study in your intermediate direct tax, okay? Because orthanku tax eppo apply agula only when he becomes a resident in India. Okay, let's say if there's Chris Gayle, okay, if he comes to India and he's playing IPL, now the income that he gets, obviously he will get some kind of remuneration, right? Will that be taxable in India or not? It will depend on whether Chris Gayle is a resident or a non-resident. Are you able to understand? So those things you'll study in detail in your CA intermediate. For now, I will tell you the difference, what you need to know from the law point of view, who is a resident and who is a citizen. When I say you are a citizen of India, that means either your your parents or your grandparents were born in undivided India. Were born in undivided India. When I say undivided India, it's basically the India that we had before the partition. Okay, that means it includes the land of Pakistan and all of that, also Bangladesh and all of that. So when I say you are a citizen of India, you will be considered a citizen if either your parents or your grandparents were born in undivided India. But residence status depends on how many days you stayed in India in the preceding financial year. Residence of India, if I say you are a resident of India, that depends on how many days you stayed during the previous financial year, how many days you stayed. Okay, for example, that's the reason you would have seen in movies, some people we call NRI, right? They are non-residential Indians. They are Indian, their citizenship is India only, but they are non-residential. It's because they have been staying in foreign, they have stayed for less than 120 days in the preceding financial year. So here if you see, for having a nominee or a nominee status kadikkanuna, nee resident ah irukanuma illa nee vandu citizen ah irukanuma? First condition is you need to first be a natural person and you have to be a citizen of India. Okay, and here previously there was a different law, now an amendment has come and they are telling you may or may not be a resident. You may or may not be a resident. So it is important that you should be a natural person and you should be a citizen of India, but you may or may not be a resident of India. So let's say, for example, can I have, let's say Chris Gale, he has not been in India last year completely, let's assume. Is he a natural person? Yes. Is he a citizen of India? No. Can I have him as my nominee? No, I cannot have him as my nominee. But let's suppose Virat Kohli. Is he a natural person? Yes. Now let's suppose, is he a citizen of India? Obviously yes. But let's say last year completely 365 days he only stayed in London. He did not even come to India. Can I still make him my nominee? Yes. Are you able to understand the difference? He should be a natural person and a citizen of India. Residentship condition is not required. He may be a resident or he may not be a resident. Are you able to understand this, guys? Yeah, the Zoom people, are you guys able to understand? Now moving on to, yeah, great. You guys understood, great. Okay, now moving on to some other important points that is there. First thing we told that in the OPC indalo 1% company indalo adla nominee appoint pandrathu is mandatory. Adu illama unala 1% company incorporate panna mudiyadhu. Adukapra enna solrana, a person can become a member only in one OPC and a nominee. Ipo one person is there, can he become an member in one OPC? Yes. Adhe mari, for example, I have ABC, okay, which is a 1% company. Or let's say I open a company which is just called Deepika, okay, and it is a OPC, and in that I am one of the members. Is that possible? Yes. Now I open one more called Deepika Consultancy Services, that is also an OPC. Can I become a member again? No. Are you able to understand? One member can only be ஒரு OPCல இப்போ நீ ஒரு மெம்பர் ஆயிட்டேனா you cannot become a member in another OPC. But let's say Deepikaன்னு சொல்லிட்டு I have an OPC in which I am a member. One of my friend, let's say Mr. A, he opens an OPC. Can I be a nominee in that? Yes, I can be a nominee. ஓகே, நீ வந்து ஒரு மெம்பரா தான் ரெண்டு ஓபிசில இருக்க முடியாது. ஒரு ஓபிசில மெம்பர், இன்னொரு ஓபிசில நாமினியா இருக்கலாம். பட் லெட்ஸ் சப்போஸ் this particular guy, okay, because he is my friend, obviously he should be mad, right? So he turned he's turned lunatic, unsound mind. So if somebody is unsound, can they continue? He will not be a member. So I'm a member illana, who should step now? I should only step. Now if I step in, then I will become a member of two OPCs. Now is it possible for me to continue? No. So the Companies Act says, in the mari edavadhu situation aichuna, first you were a member in one OPC, innonthla nee nominee and is that allowed? Absolutely no problem. But let's say in that second OPC in which you were nominee, that member dies and now you have to step instead of the member as a new member, abdina you become member in 2 OPC, which is not allowed. Abdina the Companies Act says if such a situation comes, you have 180 days to make a decision. Now you have to decide, in the OPC la, Deepika OPC la, do you want to continue as a member or you want to step in Mr. A's OPC? You have to decide and inform the company. The company will inform the ROC. Are you guys able to understand the situation? In the mari case laws varadhukku chance irukku. They might tell you, nee first vandu eppadi keppaanga, nee oru company la vandu OPC member ah irke, innoru OPC la vandu nominee ah irke. Adu correct ah abdina absolutely fine. Adula endha prachanayum illa. Ana ipo and second nee edla nominee ah irkiyo, and member settu poita or something, he becomes insolvent or he becomes of unsound mind, and mari edho aidichi, nee step in pannu as a member abdina nee rendu edathila ennava maariduve, rendu edathila member ah maariduve, and one person cannot be a member of 2 OPCs. So now you have to decide within 180 days in which OPC do you want to continue, and whatever decision you take, you need to inform it to the ROC. You need to inform it to the Registrar of Companies. This is an important concept, and I think in one-person company, this is the only technical concept that is there. Others are all quite easy. Are you guys able to understand Zoom, people? Is one-person company clear? Okay, it's not very technical, but just let me know if it's fine so that we move forward. Yeah? It's clear? Okay, great. Great. Okay, now moving on to the last part of one-person company, which is procedure for change of nominee as per the Companies Act. Let's say I formed a company, I formed an OPC, and I had Mr. A as my nominee. Who was my nominee? Mr. A. But there was some fight between me and Mr. A. So there was some fight between the both of us. So I decided that I don't want this guy as my nominee. I want to change him. Now what is the procedure if you want to change the nominee? If you want to change the nominee, if the member wants to change the nominee or the nominee himself, ipo avane vandu illa enak indha company la inmel nominee ah continue panna vena appadine, either if he himself is coming and saying, or nominee becomes a member, something happens to me, so who will step in my place? The nominee has to step in my place. And the mari moonu situations la what will happen? The nominee has to follow the following procedure. He has to, in all the 3 cases, he needs to give his consent within 15 days. He needs to give his consent within 15 days. Let's say I want to change Mr. A and appoint Mr. B. So who should give the consent? Mr. A should say that, okay, I don't want to continue, and Mr. B should say, okay, I want to now become the new nominee. Both should give their consent that one wants to withdraw and other wants to become the new nominee. That is in case number 1, when I want to change. Case number 2 is the nominee himself wants to withdraw. Avanda Mr. A da nominee anna, ana ipo vandu enna solrana, illa illa enak inmel unoda OPC la nominee irukka vena appdin sonnana, I need to get a form, I need to fill that form and submit it to the ROC. And after submitting to the ROC, I need to find out one more nominee, because a OPC cannot run without a nominee, correct? So ivan poitana, ivanku badla vera yaro vandudana agunu. So andha mari vera oru nominee kandupidichi avan ivan nominee ah irukadhukku, that is, let's say Mr. B is my new nominee abdina, Mr. B should also sign a form saying that I am giving consent that I want to become a nominee in her company. Are you able to understand? Or the last case, when something happens to me, I become insolvent or become of unsound mind, whatever happens to me, even at those situations, what should be done? You need to fill that particular form and submit it. Is that clear, guys? These are all very procedural parts, okay? Usually they won't test. The main part is this 180 days replacement. Okay, in case a nominee, in case the member dies, when you become a member in 2 companies, within 180 days, you should give a declaration. That is only the most important part. Is that clear, guys? Is that clear? Now, what we did, okay, there's somebody who's telling, can you start over again? I don't know what exactly is your doubt. You can put that. Change of nominee, all the 3 cases. Okay, I'll explain the change of nominee, all the 3 cases. Is anybody having any other doubt? Okay, I'll quickly revise the rules of nominees again for people who have a doubt, and then I'll move forward. Okay, couple of you are asking. I'll just quickly revise that. The procedure part is very simple, guys. This is the procedure. In all the 3 cases, the new nominee should give his consent within 15 days. He needs to give in consent. There's something called INC3. So in foundation level, it is not important. But inter level, you will read a lot of form numbers. Okay, for example, in foundation level, one form number that you need to remember is SPICE. That we'll be reading today, okay? I don't know if you guys know. SPICE plus INC32 abdino or form irko. That is what we submit in case we want to incorporate a company. SPICE is nothing but a simplified pro forma invoice for forming a company electronically. Okay, that's what it stands for. So we'll be reading about that procedural part, but in foundation level, you don't have to remember all the form numbers that are there. Now, what are these forms abdina? Basically, நீ MCA வெப்சைட்ல போயிட்டு if you type INC13 or INC32 அப்படின்னா ஒரு ஃபார்ம் டவுன்லோட் ஆகும். அந்த ஃபார்மை ஃபில் பண்ணி you can electronically submit. Okay, you need not to, if a company alla incorporate pannu, if a client comes and asks you that he wants to incorporate a company, you need not go anywhere physically to incorporate. You just have to download all the forms, fill the form, attach all the ID proofs and everything. For example, if there's a director, his Aadhaar card, his address proof, and all of that you have to attach, and you have to submit it in the MCA website. Otherwise, automatically verify panni, if all the form has been filled properly, all the conditions are satisfied, it will issue your company. Okay, it will tell the company is incorporated. So for that only we fill all these forms. Now, what is the form that we fill in case we want to change a nominee abdina? That is called INC3. INC3 is that form where you give the consent, where any nominee gives the consent saying that, okay, I agree to be the nominee of this one person company. So in case you are changing any of your nominee, 15 days of that change kulla nee enna pannu, in the form of fill panni submit pannu to the company. Company will within 30 days submit it to the ROC. Are you able to understand the process? Let's say I'm changing my nominee. Today I change. What is the date today? 31st October. So within 15 days, I need to fill INC3 and give it to the one person company. I need to give it to the one person company. The one person company will within 30 days in the form change பண்ணிருக்கோம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி இன்னொரு ஃபார்ம் இருக்கு, INC4 ன்னு இருக்கு. அந்த ரெண்டு ஃபார்மையும் company will submit to the ROC, and ROC will make the changes. ROC oda document la, like how you have school la unakku records irukula, and mari ROC also maintains a database, and database la poitu inumela Mr. A nominee kadiyadu, B da nominee அப்படினு சொல்லி மாத்திடுவாங்க. So and the process da idu, you don't have to remember detailed process, at least at foundation level. These and all a part will be tested at your intermediate level. Okay, for now the important part is only this one person, that one person cannot be an OPC and one person cannot be member in 2 OPCs is the only important point that you will have to remember. I hope it's very, very clear. Yeah. Now moving on to the next part. Before we move on to this, ipo varaikum namba padichada, if I have to quickly summarize, okay, we'll do something called, this is a technique that I used to use, and I always tell people to go ahead with this technique. If whenever you do a theory subject, okay, let's say you have studied for 2 hours a day. Okay, நீ வந்து இப்போ உட்காந்து, let's say when you do a self study, நீ வந்து 2 மணி நேரம் உட்காந்து ஒரு கான்ட்ராக்ட் ஆக்ட் ஃபுல்லா படிச்சிட்ட அப்படின்னா, how do I revise it, ma'am? Because I'm studying the whole day. What a lot of students have a problem is when they go for self study, they're telling I'm studying for 8-10 hours, but night வந்து நான் என்ன படிச்சேன் அப்படின்னு யோசிச்சு பார்க்கும்போது காலையில படிச்சதெல்லாம் எனக்கு மறந்து போயிடுது. I'm not able to recall. It's because you don't do an effective revision. How you do is for 2 hours, especially if it's a theory paper, 2 hours நீ என்ன படிக்கணுமோ, whatever slots you have, you study. After that, I make something like a mind map. மைண்ட் மேப்னா என்னன்னா, புக்கெல்லாம் க்ளோஸ் பண்ணி வச்சுட்டு, இப்போ ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் நம்ம இப்போ 3 நாளா நம்ம கம்பெனிஸ் ஆக்ட் படிச்சிருக்கோம். இஃப் ஐ ஹேவ் டு மேக் அ மைண்ட் மேப், I tell my students to do this in the regular class, but I'll just quickly do it for you. Sorry. In a mind map, உனக்கு என்னெல்லாம் கான்செப்ட்ஸ் ஞாபகம் இருக்கோ அதெல்லாம் நீ குட்டி குட்டியா you will have to start writing it. For example, it need not be very neat and detailed. It just has to be section number. For example, I like section 220. It defines company. Now or earlier, which means it is either incorporated in this act or any other. And the very key words which you have to fill that entire page with whatever concepts you have read so far. Adukapra you compare it with your textbook. Okay, appo if you are not able to recall, இப்போ வந்து OPC ஓட இதை நான் மறந்தே போயிட்டேன், இந்த டாபிக் இருந்ததே நான் மறந்து ஸ்கிப் பண்ணிட்டேன் அப்படின்னா, those topics are things that you are not able to recall. அதுதான் நீ next day உட்காந்து படிக்கணும். That is what you call cumulative revisions. Even when you attend any of the regular classes, even if now that your classes are over, but when you go to an intermediate, whenever a faculty is revising, for example, how I do is, na ipo vandonne first 10 minutes I usually revise what I did previously. Whenever the faculty does that, you should try answering with them. அப்போ என்ன இருக்குன்னா உனக்கு வந்து you will be able to realize okay இந்த பாயிண்ட் நம்ம மறந்துட்டோம், இது நம்மளால சொல்ல முடியல, அதெல்லாம் you have to make a note somewhere. That is what you have to revise when you go home, because what you are able to answer with me, that means you know that concept. You don't have to go and spend extra time there. But எது உன்னால recall பண்ண முடியல அதுதான் you will have to go and revise. That's why I told those audio pods that I give. In that audio pods, when you listen to them, it's just like instead of when you, let's say you're traveling or to a class, instead of listening to music, if you do listen that, or let's say when you're having dinner, instead of watching TV, if you listen to that, automatically you're creating a memory. Are you able to understand? That's why I told you that song thing. I told you right on the first day when you write your exams, you're able to recall a song. It's because நீ அதுக்கு முன்னாடி அதை ஏதோ பார்த்திருப்ப or something like that. So when you're trying to revive your memory in the exam to recollect any point that you've studied, you're getting that song also. அதனால தான் நீ எக்ஸாம் எழுதும்போது நீ பாட்டுக்கு எழுதுற, ஆனா ஏதோ ஒரு பாட்டு உன் மண்டையில ஓடிட்டே இருக்கு பத்தியா, you're not thinking about that song, consciously, but it's because you're trying to pull back your memory. Your memory has this also. So that is why more than one best way to revise is you have to make scribble notes. If you see any toppers, they do have pages and pages of notes that they make. Then that might not be clean, but it's just scribble notes. Scribble notes, like when you write, you're making a mechanical memory. Second, when you listen to it. Okay, adnalda I used to do it. I tell people, if you are telling ma'am I do not have audio pods, you can record it for yourself. Nala enoda CA intermediate CA final la irukumbodla I still have those telegram groups. And the telegram group la yarume irukka maatanga. I just create a self group. I am the only member there. I just create audio pods and keep it. What I do is when I'm, let's say if I'm studying in the night, I'm usually a night person, okay? Usually I used to study full night because morning I have a lot of disturbance. Like people are going here and there and you take a lunch break, you take a break for breakfast. It is very disturbing. But night or stretch ukkandu padichona, if I want something, let's say I want a coffee, I should only go and make. And I'm a lazy person, so I'll not go. So adanala I'll only take minimum breaks. So that's why I prefer night and nobody is there to disturb. So when I used to do like that, whenever I feel sleepy, I used to make scribble notes. Okay, that is one very, and what a lot of people do is they take very small study sessions. That is, they are studying for 1 hour and then taking a half an hour break. You're not supposed to do like that. You need to either have a 90-15. This is how either you have a 19-15, but if you're telling ma'am enala 1.5 hours, 90 minutes, 1.5 hours padikka mudiyada, I cannot have concentration, then you can go for a 60, that is 60 minutes you study, you take a 5 minutes break. Okay, now how do you make it very effective is, this is the technique that I use. This might not work for a lot of you guys. Actually I don't sit in my study table and study. I usually used to sit in my bed and study. Okay, that's how I find. So I just put like there'll be this small table, right? And I sit in my bed and study. So in front of me there's my TV in my room. So there are so many YouTube channels where they do something called a live streaming, live study with me, something like that. I don't know if it's there now and all. In my times it used to be there. Okay, so in that it need not be people who are doing CA. There are a lot of UPSC aspirants. Avangala they study for 21 hours, they study for 14 hours like that. So I start with them in the morning. They will give you lunch break and the mari. It's not avanga adla edume panna podilla. There will not be any sound or any audio to that thing. Only you can see a person who is sitting and studying. So, and there's a timer going on. So we have completed 3 hours, 4 hours and the mari. So it's basically like virtually you feel like somebody else is also sitting and studying with you. Because the main problem that I had was I did all my crucial part during COVID time. So I never had an opportunity to come any face-to-face classes. But when you're in a 12th standard, you're used to doing group studies, you call people and talk. So you know what the others are doing. So you are in track. Okay, avan padikira, nanu padikino. But in my CA foundation, intermediate and final and all, I was doing everything self. So எனக்கு யாருமே தெரியாது who are the other people who are doing. Correct? Because in online class, you see everybody through only Zoom. Now, I only know their name by ID. Okay, so I don't know them in person. So you don't have anybody to call to. So I used to do it like this. And it actually worked. Because then for me, the feeling was if he can sit and study for 14 hours, I should be also able to study. So I used to pull it off like that in the night. And there are a lot of people who study. So you won't feel, so it's like a community. So basically break lana you can chat with other people. So you are not supposed to do nonsense chat. You just have to tell this is my target and I was able to complete and the mari. If you find it effective, you can do it. I used to do it when I used to do my preparation. Okay. So why I'm telling you this is, especially what a lot of people do is, avanga வந்து காலையில எல்லாம் படிச்சிடுவாங்க. இந்த 2 to 5 இருக்கு பாத்தியா, that is the most difficult slot to study. Because after you have your lunch, you go to that heavenly moment, okay, when you want to sleep. So that time and all, what I used to do is, that is when I used to practice mock papers. Because one thing is, நீ வந்து main exam எழுதுறதோ நீ 2 to 5 தான் எழுதணும். So உனக்கு ஒரு practice கிடைச்சது. Secondly, அந்த sleeping time you are somehow utilizing it. அது போயிடுச்சு அப்படினா then you will be able to study. And even if you want to take a nap, naps are really useful, okay? If you take a power nap, it's useful. How I used to sleep is, நீ வந்து இப்போ ஏசி போட்டு பெட்டில் பெட்ஷீட்லாம் வச்சு தூங்கினா நல்ல 4 மணி நேரம் தூங்கலாம். That's not how you're supposed to take power nap. And if you take a 4 hours nap, then that's not power nap. Power nap is sleeping for 20 minutes. Is that effective? That's really effective. Okay, because you will actually நீ பார்த்தீங்கன்னா நீ 8 மணி நேரம் தூங்கினா நீ if you have guys have இப்போலாம் நிறைய வருது இல்லை, where you can track your sleep ratio, how நீ டீப் ஸ்லீப்பில் எப்போ போனா அப்படிலாம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா நீ 1.5 hours தான் வந்து டீப்பாக ஸ்லீப் பண்ணுவேன். Other time you're sleeping, but consciously your mind is working. That's when you're dreaming or stuffs like that. So consciously நம்ம ஆக்சுவலாகவே ரெஸ்ட்டுக்கு போகிற டைம் வந்து மேக்ஸிமம் 1 to 1.5 hours. நீ 6 மணி நேரம் தூங்கலாலே. ஓகேயா? ஸோ effectively அவ்வளோ ரெஸ்ட் தான் வேணும். So what I used to do is I used to sleep on the floor. Because I'm not used to sleeping on the floor, your back hurts, so I cannot sleep for longer time. And I used to not have a pillow. I used to keep my knuckles like this. So நீ ஆக்சுவலாக தூங்கும் போது this becomes like, and the knuckle goes down. So on the valiலே you will get up. These are some stupid techniques that I used to use. You can use your own techniques or you can keep a timer. எனக்கு வந்து அப்படிலாம் இல்லை. I used to sleep, எனக்கு எப்போ தூக்கம் வருதோ I used to go to the floor and sleep for 20 minutes. And 15-20 minutes I'll get up automatically and I'll actually feels fresh. Now you might not feel the burdens because for you 3 practical papers and only 1 theory. நாங்களாம் படிக்கும்போது நிறைய theory papers இருக்கும். We have law, audit, EISSM. So EISSM na computer paper. It's literally computer science paper. You be happy or lucky that that paper is scrapped for you because that was a hell paper in CA intermediate. Because on the Trojan and my virus, edume you'll not understand it. For an accounting student, what Trojan virus, ERP and all, we used to not understand, but you have to still score marks in that, right? So when those theory is very dominating, these things will help you. Even now, the only theory paper you practically have is law. Economics is not theory, it's actually very practical. உனக்கு புரிஞ்சது demand and supply and all, it's actually very, very easy. So அந்த மாதிரி practical papers பண்ணும்போது you have to also choose the morning slot. What a lot of students do is, I will do last practical. I'll finish accounts, I'll finish maths, I'll finish economics, then I will do law. But by the end of the day, you will get very tired. And you'll be like, first 2 pages only you'll be able to read. Then you will feel very ineffective. So the first thing I always tell is, finish your morning slot with tough papers. I don't know, for everybody it's different. For me, maths and law were tough. Okay, I can manage accounting and economics. So morning slots, I used to finish this. So like that, you'll have to plan your day properly. Okay. I don't know how you're doing your daily questions, but I will ideally tell you daily questions நீ எப்படி பண்ணணும்னா, இன்னைக்கு நீ கிளாஸ் முடிச்சுட்டு போற, obviously class 8:30 மணிக்கு தான் முடியும்னா நீ கண்டிப்பா வீட்டுக்கு போய் படிக்க மாட்டே. I know that about you. Okay, you maximum will go and sleep. So what you do is, tomorrow morning when you get up, நீ revise பண்ணிட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் timer வச்சுட்டு you should start your daily questions. I don't know how you guys are doing. Are you guys doing it like this or are you doing on the same day? Doing on the same day? Okay, or which batch? D batch. Okay, I'll just check. Okay, so like this, why I'm telling you now is, last 15 days a schedule matradhu is very difficult. Your body won't get used to it, but now it's easy. You still have 2 months. First 5 days you might feel it's a little difficult, but 10, 15, 20 days your body will set to that routine. Okay, so whatever is going to be your routine, whether you're a morning person or night person, start fixing it from now and don't change it. What a lot of students do is, avanga 5 naal padipanga, Saturday Sunday suttama padikka matanga. Like that you cannot do in CA. You have to study every 7 days. Okay, there is nothing called a Sunday when it comes to CA. Okay, for us every day is working day. Maybe Sunday you can study a little less, or 8 மணி நேரம் அப்படினா you can pull it off for 5 hours for 6 hours, but you cannot leave a gap day. Okay, that is very, very important, because when you leave a gap day, you get that pleasure of inik padikave illa jaliya irundhathu. But once you get that, coming back to a routine is very, very difficult. That's why we say isolate yourself. Okay, when I say don't use social media, it's not that we don't want you to use it. It's because when you see others enjoying, no, ideally when you're in a difficult situation, yaradhu konjam jaliya irundha kuda namakku oru madhiya verupa irukum. Verupu enna na jaliya illanu illa, avan eppadi enjoy pandran, that's your more thing. So that's why I tell you, for me, if you ask me, it's been 12 months. I'm not on social, I'm not on Instagram. Only for promotional, that is my work promotional purposes I use. Otherwise, I'm not on Instagram. It's not there on my phone. I didn't actually feel like I'm missing out on something. For me, actually, when I was using Instagram and I had to post something, it was like more of a mental pressure, because you have to edit that thing, you have to think of a caption. That caption should have been not used by others. This is all is faltu work, okay? So I've not been for 12 months. I've never been on Snapchat. Snapchat, the last time I used was when I was in 8th grade. So it's nothing that you're going to miss out on. Trust me when I say that. In fact, I'm very happy because I don't know what's happening in anybody's life. Okay, whether they have a girlfriend, whether they have a boyfriend, at least your age, okay, I have midlife crisis. No, my friends and all are getting married. And I'm still sitting like this, always coming in morning, teaching contract act, what is contract, define. My life is, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to tell you that I am not really into it, and it's not something that you will miss. And trust me, when I see all my friends doing it, Padi is that fake only. They take, let's say we go to ITC, let's say for example, they take 2-3 pictures. They didn't post everything in the same day. They'll only post one picture. Why? The other picture, they'll use it later. So, நீ வந்து ஒரு வாரம் கழிச்சு பாக்கும்போது நீ என்ன நினைப்ப, இப்போ போன வாரமும் ITC போனா இந்த வாரமும் this guy has a lot of money, but that is the same picture being recycled. Are you able to understand? So nobody is giving you a two scenario of what they are. They are showing that they are happy, but maybe they are not. Right? So there's no point of using social media according to me. If you enjoy doing it, do it, but try to limit your screen time. Okay? Why I told you was, this topic, why I did all this general talk was, this is a completely new topic compared to what you learned last. Okay, that's why. The 5 minutes of break was, that's why. Because if I actually give you a break, you guys will go somewhere. Okay, and the Zoom guys are already very difficult to control. Zoom guys, are you there? Are you able to understand? So what we have finished so far is types of company done. Okay, I don't know why my handwriting is turning like this. Types of company is done. Then we read doctrine we still have to do. We did features of company. Now, doctrine ku munadi we'll read something called an MOA, which is nothing but Memorandum of Association. Once you understand this concept, idoda related concept is ultra wires. Then its exception is, not its exception, it is based on the concept of constructive notice, and idoda exception is indoor management. If you complete this chunk, almost the Companies Act is done. After this, we have a procedural part. How do you do the registration? Which is just 5 minutes topic, okay? That is full procedure only. You have to remember form numbers and everything. Main is this part, okay? This has a lot of case laws and everything. We'll quickly read it, okay? I hope you actually went through your ICI material and did read that MOA definition, okay? If you did not read, we'll do it now, okay? So basically, there are two important documents for a company. One is called a MOA and another is called a AOA. And MOA is nothing but a Memorandum of Association. In that Memorandum of Association is also called the Charter of a company. Charter means it's the main document for any company. In the document, what and all can the company do? Basically, why is this company formed? What and all activities will the company do? Everything will be written in the memorandum. Okay, in the regular batch, I usually open Reliance or any other company's memorandum and show. I don't know if they have internet access. Otherwise, if you go to any particular website, for example, Reliance website, MOA, AOA, everything is available. Okay, you can see. Basically, MOA la enna எழுதுவாங்கன்னா, இப்போ நான் ஒரு company form பண்ணிருக்கேன்னா, இந்த company வச்சு நான் என்னெல்லாம் வேலை பண்ணலாம்? For example, I can give educational. For example, if you take KS Academy, they'll give education services. They'll give you education related services. For example, your SAP, your mock exams. That is not exactly education, but related to education. Placement services. That is also related to education. And the mari in the company ennalam pandradhukaga form pannirukanga adha edhula da எழுதுவோம்? MOA la da எழுதுவோம். Can I do anything that is not written in MOA? No. Now, can SBI go and start teaching for CA? No, because their MOA would be written something like they will lend money to people, they will borrow money from people, they will invest in money market, they will invest in the securities market. And the money, it will be written related to banking, whatever services are there, that will be written. Only they can do that. If you do anything outside the scope of memorandum, that is memorandum la adu eludala ana nee adha panna appadina, it is what? It is called ultra wires. Ultra wires is nothing but you are doing some activity which is not given in the memorandum. If you do such activity, is it valid or is it void? It is void. Now, what do you mean by void? I hope you have at least some basic understanding of the Indian Contract Act. Let's say let's say there's some, I am Miss D, let's say for example, I enter into an agreement with SBI saying that it should give CA coaching services to my students. It should give CA coaching services to my student, and for that I will pay SBI rupees 2 crores, let's suppose. Now, Is SBI's MOA allowing SBI to give educational services? No. Now, let's say SBI first said, okay, we'll give you education services, we'll teach the students CA courses, everything fine. But later they come and say that, no, it's not possible because it is outside the scope of MOA. Can I go to the court? I will not be able to go to the court, because even if I go to the court will tell the same thing. Are you mad or what? Because MOA and AOA of any company is a public document. What do you mean by public document? Public document is nothing but these are freely accessible. MCA website la poi nee Reliance company nu potana adoda MOA AOA la nee download panikalam. So every person who is entering into a contract with any company, it is assumed that you would have read the MOA and you know that the company can do or cannot do this particular activity. That is only called the principle or doctrine of constructive notice. Are you able to understand? It is said that an MOA and AOA is a public document. So whenever, let's say me or anybody is entering into a contract with any company, it is assumed that I would have read the public document and I very clearly know whether the company can enter into such contract or not. So if it cannot enter but you still are going and doing it, then it is a void contract. Please do not come to the court with any issues. We are not going to solve. Is it audible now? Okay, people who did not receive the practice question, I'll give, okay? Okay, guys, is my voice audible now? Zoom people? Weird. Okay. So in case you enter into a contract with any company in which the MOA does not allow to do this particular activity, then that contract will automatically become void in nature, right? That is what is the concept of constructive notice. Now tell me, this concept of constructive notice, is it protecting the company or is it protecting the shareholders? Company or outsiders? Sorry, I mean company or outsiders? It is protecting the company. The concept of constructive notice protects the company because it puts the responsibility on the outsider, saying that Neenda MOA AOA la padichittu vandirukano. You cannot blame the company. Nee padichittu, if the company can enter into a contract, you should have entered, otherwise you should have not. Are you able to understand, guys? Now moving on to the clauses that are there in MOA. In case you have practically seen a memorandum of association, maybe today you can go ahead and download any company's MOA and have a look. They will basically have all these clauses. Okay, whenever, let's say tomorrow practically also you start your practice, you have to incorporate a company, you need to get the following details from your client and then only you will start preparing an MOA. The first point that will be given in an MOA is the name clause. The first point that will be given is the name clause. The name clause will basically have the name of the company. It will have the name of the company, and in case it's a private company or a public company, it should mandatorily have an abbreviation of private limited or limited. In case it is a Section 8 company, then you are exempted from writing any of this. We studied in yesterday's class, right? If you are Section 8 company, நீ என்ன abbreviation வெச்சுக்க தேவையில்ல, private limited or limited நீ போட்டுக்கணும்னு அவசியம் கிடையாது. It's not required. Next is the registered office clause. The first clause is the name clause. The second clause is the registered office clause. Basically, okay, the registered office clause registered office clause will talk about what? It will say in which state that particular company is registered. Now, what a lot of people think is in this clause full address will be there. No, in this you have to only mention whether what is the state. It's Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. Like that, you only have to mention the state in the registered office clause. Next that you will be seeing is the object clause. This is the most important clause in MOA, because in this clause only you will be writing the objective. Let's say if it's KSA, you will tell we will give education, we will give services related to papers like paper evaluation, or we'll give placement services. Like that, whatever the company can do, it will be written in the object clause of the company. Next is a important clause, that is the liability clause. We've already studied the different types of companies based on liability, right? You can be either company limited by guarantee or company limited by shares or an unlimited company. Now, what form of company are you? You need to write in the liability clause. Next is the capital clause. You have studied in your accounting, your companies, when you do accounting for companies, you have studied, right? Authorized capital, paid up capital. All of this you will write in what is the authorized capital amount, what is being subscribed. All of that you will be writing in your capital clause. And then comes your subscription cost. In capital, you will write the authorized capital. Subscription, you will write how much has been subscribed. And then in case you are a one-person company, you will have an additional clause which is called the nominee clause. As we have discussed in detail in today's class, you need to write who is your nominee. And he needs to give that consent form and all. Yeah. So these are the important clauses that are there in the MOA. So basically, key words that you need to remember in an MOA is nothing but MOA is a charter of a company. It has basically the objectives of the company that it can carry out. There are different clauses. The first clause is called the name clause, in which the name of the organization is given. The second clause is called the registered office clause, where the state where the office is registered is given. The third is called the objective clause, where the objective of the company is given. The fourth is the liability clause, where the liability, whether it's limited by guarantee, shares or an unlimited company is mentioned. And then you have the capital clause, in which the authorized capital of the company is given. Then you have the subscription clause, in which you have the subscribed capital of the company. And last, in case you are a one-person company, you have an additional clause called as the nominee clause. Are you able to understand, guys? Now coming to an important case law, which is Ashbury Railway Carriage versus Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company versus Ritchie. Okay, so this is based on the principles of ultra wires and constructive notice. So what basically happened was, there was this guy called Ritchie and this company called Ashbury. Okay, so Ashbury company was into the activity of doing this. இப்போ Ashbury company-ஓட objective clause-ல என்ன எழுதி இருந்தது அப்படின்னா, அந்த company வந்து it will be making, hiring, selling railway carriages. You know what are carriages? Railway carriages, you know, like buggies that are there in the railways. So this company will either make them, hire them or sell them. And wagons. Okay, maybe that's some part of the train, I'm not exactly sure. And they will do mechanical engineering work and other contracts. So this exact words were written in the MOA of this Ashbury company. Then what was written? That they are a company who will be either making, hiring or selling railway carriage, and they will give mechanical engineering services and other contracts. This is what was written in Ashbury's MOA. But in the Ashbury company, it went to a guy called Ritchie and say that, Ritchie, what you do is you lay down this railway tracks, I will finance it. I will finance it. Is anywhere in the MOA it is written that the company can enter into financing contracts, that is lending money to somebody? Like that, nowhere it was written. But this company entered into a contract with Ritchie saying that you lay the railway tracks and I will finance the whole contract. Ritchie also got very excited because it was a big contract. He logged all the agreements with every vendor and he said, boss, give me money, I need to start the work. When this Ritchie came back to this Ashbury company, at that time it told, Ritchie, we cannot give you any money because what we told earlier was against our MOA, So what this Ashbury company did was, it refused from giving any sort of financing that it has promised earlier. So obviously Ritchie got angry and he went to the court. But when it went to the court said, okay, let's first open the MOA and read what it exactly says. Adukapram nama decide pannalam whether what he did was correct or not. So what court did was they opened and they were reading the MOA and they told yeah it doesn't look like எங்கேயுமே வந்து டைரக்டா வந்து finance activity பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு எழுதவே இல்லையே, கரெக்ட் தான், ஆஷ்பரி சொல்றது கரெக்ட் தான் அப்படின்னு சொல்லும்போது ரிச்சே gave his point by saying that judge that it's correct, making, hiring இதெல்லாம் தான் போட்டிருக்கு. But if you notice lastly there's one more line that says that other contracts. So other contracts la enna venalum varala. So financing is a type of other contract dane. So it is part of MOA only. So they have to fulfill the promise. Are you able to understand what was Richie's justification? He is telling making, hiring adala uttu thalunga. Last line neenga paarenga, adla enna ezhudirukku, other contracts la enter pannalaanu ezhudirukku. Financing is a type of other contract dane. So avan enak kaasu koduthu da agano. But here only there is something called as General Clauses Act nu solli nee intermediate la padipa, which is nothing but இந்த லாவை எப்படி இன்டர்பிரேட் பண்ணும். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் இப்போ இங்கிலீஷ் படிக்கணும்னா ஏபிசி, there's nouns, pronouns, this and all, இந்த ரூல்ஸ் தெரிஞ்சாதான் உன்னால இங்கிலீஷ் படிக்க முடியுங்கிற மாதிரி லாவை இன்டர்பிரேட் பண்றதுக்கு ஜெனரல் கிளாசஸ் ஆக்ட்னு கொடுத்துருப்பாங்க. அதுல இந்த ஆக்ட்ல இப்போ இந்த மாதிரி வேர்ட்ஸுக்குலாம் என்ன மீனிங், செக்ஷன் 2ல தான் நம்ம போய் டெஃபினிஷன்ஸ்லாம் படிக்கணும். இதெல்லாம் எங்க எழுதிருக்குன்னா இந்த ஜெனரல் கிளாசஸ் ஆக்ட்ல தான் எழுதிருக்கு. இந்த மாதிரி ஜெனரல் கிளாசஸ் ஆக்ட்ல there is one rule which is basically called rule of adjustum generis. The rule is called adjustum generis. It's basically a Latin phrase, okay? The rule is called adjustum generis. The rule basically means that whenever there is a specific point followed by a general, the meaning of general is defined from the specific. For example, I say lion, tiger and all of this. Now these are what kind of animals? They are wild animals. Now can I say lion, tiger and similar animals? When I say, does that include a cat? It's not a wild animal, right? Are you able to understand? Don't tell it's the same family and all, okay? Too much science, that's why we do not know science, that's why we do commerce, okay? Don't talk technical. Okay, now let's say it's a dog. Okay, now with lion, tiger and similar animals, when I say, will that include dog? No, because the meaning of this general word is defined, it's taken from the specific. When the specific talks about wild animal, that means the general should also mean the same stuff. Are you able to understand? In the concept badi, ipo inga nee pathina, edha pathi dhaan pesranga inga, hiring, selling or making railway carriages, mechanical engineering, இந்த மாதிரி activities தான் pesranga. So is other contracts la financing podradhu correct ah thappa? It is wrong. It is not as per the rule of adjustum generis. Are you able to understand? So the judge told that நீ வந்து ஓ இஷ்டத்துக்குலாம் இன்டர்பிரேட் பண்ண முடியாது. There is a rule in law which says that if there is something specific and general, the general derives its meaning from the specific. So here other contracts will only mean other types of contract which are similar to mechanical engineering, which are similar to making, hiring or selling railway carriages. So it will not include financing. Therefore, Richie, it is your mistake that you did not read the MOA properly. If you had read the MOA and interpreted it properly, you would have clearly known that Ashbury company can never do financing contracts. So it is your mistake. So Ashbury will not pay you any sort of money. Are you able to understand this case law, guys? This is one very significant case law. They keep asking it in the exam. People in the Zoom, are you able to understand this case law? Okay, there are only two important concepts here. One is this adjustum generis, that is the specific will always get its meaning, the general will always get its meaning from the specific. And second thing is that rule of constructive notice, which says that whenever an outsider enters into a contract with the company, it is assumed that he already has read the MOA and AOA and he knows what the company can do and cannot do. Is that clear? We'll just take a 10 seconds break. 10 seconds, you can just post your doubts if you have any and then we'll continue. Yeah, everything clear? We'll move on. Now we'll quickly read the notes also of this constructive notice. Okay, so the constructive notice, the notes basically says that there's one doubt that's come up. I'll just answer that later. I'll finish this part and answer that. Okay. Constructive notice, it basically says that it is necessary for every company to get registered the MOA and AOA. I told you, right? MOA and AOA is a public document. Why we are telling this? Because it's mandatory for every company to get it registered. So if I or you or anybody wants to download MOA or AOA of any company, you can pay 200 rupees in the MCA website. You will get access. Nee endha company oda financial statements edhu venal download panikalam. Okay, you just have to pay a nominal fee and you can download all the information. So if you download that, you can clearly go and read what is the scope of the company, is what they are trying to say. And they are saying if a company enters into a contract that is beyond the scope of the MOA, then that contract will become void in nature. Okay, the other notes are the same points that we read in the class. Maybe I'll send the PDF, you can read through this. Now, one more exception. Did you understand ultra vires first? Okay, the other related concept is constructive notice. Did you understand that? Now we are going to read one of the exceptions of constructive notice, which is called indoor management. Okay, doubts related to any previous class, like I have a doubt saying that what is a listed company and what is the difference between sole proprietorship and OPC. All these specific doubts which are not currently related to the topic, I'll answer it at the end of the session. Okay, I hope that's fine, guys. I'll answer it at the end of the session, yeah? Whichever I did in the earlier classes, I'll answer it at the end of the session. First is doctrine of indoor management. Idhila basically enna solran appadina, for example, ipo vandu MOA AOA padichittu varanona, MOA la enna potrappa, company in the contract la enter pannalama illaiyan potrappa. But let's say there will be more detailed procedures. For example, if you have done audit practically, you would have seen in your articles and all, the first thing that they will tell you to do once you go to your audit is something called stat remittances வந்து review பண்ணும். That is usually if any articles we get, first year articles, they come after finishing their CA intermediate and all, we'll tell them go do stat remittances. Basically stat remittances na enna TDS la olunga katta irka illaya. Okay, in the mari you have this PF, ESI and all of this, right? The company has to pay that every month. இதெல்லாம் டியூ டேட்க்கு முன்னாடி பே பண்ணிட்டாங்களா, அந்த மாதிரி we will give you all procedural paths. Because நீ இன்டர்மீடியேட்ல படிப்பேன், இப்போ வந்து TDSனா அதுக்கு என்னைக்கு கட் பண்ணணும், எவ்வளோ நாளுக்குள்ள வந்து சப்மிட் பண்ணியிருக்கணும், this is all you will study in your intermediate DT. So that's usually the first task we give all the new associates or new articles who come. Okay, in that sometimes they will tell you please go and read the minutes of the meeting. You know what's the minutes of the meeting? You would have maybe learned how to make minutes of the meeting in your school and all. In English they teach you, right, how to make minutes of the meeting. Basically minutes of the meeting is nothing but or meeting nadakudunu vechuko, what and all discussions are going on in that meeting, somebody will note that down. Usually, you know, company secretaries, CS, it's one of the other professional courses, right? They all sit in this board meeting. Now ipanna yaro rendu per pesranga adoda notes edukanum appadi kediyadu. There will be board meeting which will be happening. For example, a meeting of Reliance abdina, the chairman will be there, Mukesh Ambani will be there, board of directors will be there. Avanga important decisions la edupanga. Ipo vandu Jio vandu expand pannuma venama, or do we want to enter into any new business, do we have to appoint anybody as the director. And the very important decisions will take place in the board meeting. It's called the board meeting, where the board of directors will come together. If you audit report la ready pandra pathiya, what you basically, how your audit works is, you go at the end of the year, maybe after March, you will go by April and all, you will go to a company wherever you have to do audit. You will get at least 3 to 4 months to complete the audit process, depending on whether you are a listed company or an unlisted company. After you complete the audit process, they will have one specific date, and that day is called the board date. And the board date la enna nadakuna, rendu meeting nadakum. One is called the board meeting, and one more will be the audit committee. So if you are an associate, you will not get to enter those rooms, okay, because there only the top management will be there, and only your partner and the firm. If you know, every firm has a partner, right? Only the person who is signing the audit report will go into that board meeting and audit committee meeting. Enna nadakuna, board meeting la all the board of directors will sit together. They'll go through the financial statements of the company and they will approve it. Okay, everything is correct. So they will sign it. First, the directors of the company will sign. Next, the auditor will come in a meeting called as the audit committee. He will explain. So, now, audit these are my key areas. CAM அப்படிலாம் நிறையா இருக்குது. You will be reading in your audit subject. இதெல்லாம் I found in these areas there were difficulty. இதெல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் issues இருக்குது. We have to improve this next year அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஒரு 5-10 நிமிஷத்துக்கு do a PPT presentation. Then the auditor will say, however, I have reviewed all the financial statements and according to me everything is correct அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு he will sign the audit report. Okay, so அப்போ இந்த ப்ராசஸ்லாம் நடக்காத யாரோ உட்காந்து வந்து minutes of the meeting எடுப்பாங்க. ஓகேயா? ஸோ why I am telling you all of this is, ஒரு கம்பெனிக்கு இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ப்ராசஸ் இருக்குது. இப்போ வந்து ஃபினான்ஷியல் ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட்ஸ்னா சும்மாவே அது அப்ரூவ் ஆகிடாது. வாட் எவர் ஃபினான்ஷியல் ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட்ஸ் யூ see, that has to go through a process. First the finance team will sit and prepare it, then the auditors will go and do their audit, they will give their reviews, they will give their comments, those corrections will be made in the financial statements. Then when all corrections are made, the final audit report will go to the board will review it, the board will sign it, after that the auditor will sign it, only then it will get listed. So this is how the process works if you are a listed company. If it's an unlisted company, same process, except that you will not go and publish it in the SEBI website. That's the only difference. Now a company secretary has to sit and make a note of all of these points. யார் வந்தாங்க, இதில் வந்து முகேஷ் அம்பானி என்ன காமெண்ட் கொடுத்தாரு, ஓகே வாட் டிட் அதர்ஸ் டிசைட், இதில் ஓட்டிங் நடந்ததுன்னா யாரெல்லாம் அகெயின்ஸ்ட் ஓட் பண்ணாங்க, யாரெல்லாம் இன் ஃபேவர் ஓட் பண்ணாங்க, இதெல்லாம் நோட் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஓகே, ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஒரு கம்பெனி லெட்ஸ் சே ரிலையன்ஸ்க்கு வந்து இப்போ வந்து ஒரு 1000 crores ஒரு லோன் வேணும் அப்படின்னா, இந்த லோனை வந்து முகேஷ் அம்பானி மட்டும் டிசைட் பண்ணிட்டா போய் எடுத்துருவானா? It's not possible. Or let's say you leave Mukesh Ambani. If the CFO of Reliance decides that they want a loan of 1000 crores, can he himself call HDFC and tell that please transfer 1000 crores from your bank to mine? No. There is a process. First வந்து இந்த லோனை எதுக்காக எடுக்கிறோன்னு போர்டு மெம்பர்ஸ்க்கு சொல்லணும். இப்போ வந்து நாங்கள் ஒரு புது ப்ராஜெக்ட் ஆரம்பிக்க போகிறோம், ஒரு க்ரூட் ஆயில் எக்ஸ்ட்ராக்ஷன் பண்ண போகிறோம், அந்த ப்ராஜெக்ட்டுக்கு எங்களுக்கு மெட்டீரியல் வாங்குறதுக்கோ இல்லை அந்த என்ன சொல்கிறது மஷினரிஸ்லாம் வாங்குறதுக்கோ எங்களுக்கு 1000 crores தேவை அப்படின்னு who should tell? The CFO will tell in front of the board. Next the board will discuss, ஓகே இதுக்கு வந்து நம்ம என்ன பண்ணலாம், லோனாகவே எடுத்துக்கலாமா, இல்லை நம்மளோட ஷேர் ஹோல்டர்ஸ் கிட்டேருந்து அன்கால்ட் அமௌண்ட் ஏதாவது இருக்குது, இப்போ 10 ரூபாய் ஷேர்னு வச்சுக்கோ, 6 ரூபாய் தான் வாங்கியிருக்கேன்னு வச்சுக்கோ, 4 is still uncalled, ரைட்? அந்த அன்கால்ட் அமௌண்ட்டை கால் பண்ணலாமா, இல்லை டிபென்ச்சர்ஸ் இஷ்யூ பண்ணலாமா, பாண்ட்ஸ் இஷ்யூ பண்ணலாமா, இல்லை ஷார்ட் டேர்ம் மணி மார்க்கெட் போகலாமா, அந்த மாதிரி அவங்க டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணிவிட்டு ஓகே எவ்ரிபடி டிசைட் தட் இல்லை நம்ம வந்து HDFC கிட்ட போய் லோனே எடுத்துக்கலாம், அதுதான் அவங்க தான் நம்மளுக்கு கம்மியான இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் ரேட்டில் கொடுக்குறாங்க, பிகாஸ் வி ஹேவ் குட் டேர்ம்ஸ் வித் தெம் அப்படின்னு டிசைட் பண்ணாங்கன்னா, now all the board of directors will sit and vote for that. And if let's say 10 பேர் இருக்காங்கன்னா, majority vote ஆகுனா 6 people வந்து in favor vote பண்ணிட்டாங்கன்னா, now they will proceed and take loan from HDFC. So இந்த மாதிரி ஒவ்வொரு விஷயத்துக்கும் என்ன process follow பண்ணணும்னு கம்பெனியோட AOA-ல எழுதியிருக்கோம். Okay, so now what is an AOA? It is called an Articles of Association. MOA-ல என்ன எழுதிருக்குன்னா, கம்பெனி ஓவராலாக என்னெல்லாம் பண்ணலாம் அப்படிங்கிறது MOA. பட் AOA-ல இந்த மாதிரி மைனர் ப்ரொசீஜர்ஸ், ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஒரு லோன் எடுக்கணும்னா அதுக்கு வந்து போர்டில் வந்து மெஜாரிட்டி ஆஃப் தி மெம்பர்ஸ் அப்ரூவ் பண்ணும், ஒரு டைரக்டரை ரிமூவ் பண்ணணும்னா என்ன ப்ரொசீஜர், ஒரு ஆடிட்டரை அப்பாயிண்ட் பண்ணணும்னா என்ன ப்ரொசீஜர், இந்த மாதிரி எல்லா ஆக்டிவிட்டீஸ்க்கும் ப்ரொசீஜர்ஸ் will be written in the AOA. Now what does this particular companies act is saying is that, இப்போ ஒரு அவுட்சைடர், நான் போய் ரிலையன்ஸோட, இப்போ நான் HDFCன்னு வச்சுக்கோ, HDFCயோட மேனேஜர்னா நான் ரிலையன்ஸ்க்கு லோன் கொடுக்கணும் அப்படின்னா நான் போய் பார்ப்பேன் ரிலையன்ஸோட MOA-ல எழுதியிருக்கா அவங்க லோன் வாங்கலாம் அப்படின்னு, ரிலையன்ஸோட MOA-ல எழுதியிருக்கானா வெரி குட், இட்ஸ் ரிட்டன் that they can, if they have any requirement they can go and take loan from the outsiders. It is written and it says in the AOA that out of 10 board of directors at least 6 should vote in favor அப்படின்னு AOA-ல எழுதியிருக்கு அப்படின்னா, as a manager of HDFC, basically as an outsider, I can assume that that process would have been followed, because நான் போய் இப்போ ரிலையன்ஸோட போர்டு மீட்டிங்ல போய் உட்கார முடியுமா? It's not possible. As an HDFC manager, I can only assume that that process would have been followed. So that is what indoor management says, that indoor, that is internally அவங்க மேனேஜ் பண்றாங்களா இல்லையா, அந்த ப்ராசஸ் நடக்கணும்னு இருக்கு, அது பண்றாங்களா இல்லையான்னு பார்க்க வேண்டியது உன் வேலை கிடையாது. You can assume that they would have followed those processes. இப்போ 6 பேர் அப்ரூவல் பண்ணுனா 6 பேர் சைன் பண்ணியிருப்பாங்க அப்படின்னு என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம், assume பண்ணிக்கலாம். So this particular doctrine actually protects the outsiders. If you see the principle of or the doctrine of constructive notice protects the company. It says that outsider நீ தான் படிச்சுட்டு வரணும் எல்லாத்தையும், but the doctrine of indoor management says that நீ வந்து ஓவராலா MOA AOA படிச்சா போதும், அவங்க அது பண்ணலாம் அப்படிங்கிறது தெரிஞ்சா போதும். whether that process was followed, அந்த ப்ரொசீஜர்ல 3 people சைன் பண்ணும் டைரக்டர்ஸ்னா அது சைன் பண்ணிருக்காங்களா இல்லையா இதெல்லாம் நீ பார்க்கணும்னு அவசியம் இல்லை. You can assume that it is being followed properly by the company. Are you able to understand and appreciate the difference between indoor management and constructive notice? Constructive notice is for protecting the company. Indoor management is to protect the outsiders, because outsiders na ipo reliance on the there are so many different contracts they enters. With the bank they are entering, with the vendor they are entering. எல்லாருமே உட்கார்ந்து board of meeting la இதெல்லாம் approve ஆச்சா இல்லையா நான் பார்க்க முடியும். MOA ல எழுதி இருக்கு இது பண்ணலாம் அப்படினு. So we will assume you would have done as per the required procedures. Are you able to understand this difference? Usually if you ask me, out of all the three doctrines, which is very very important, constructive notice and indoor management is very very important, because you need to understand there's a very slight difference. One is a positive doctrine, another is a negative doctrine. Positive because one protects the companies, and indoor management is against the company, it protects the outsiders. Are you able to understand this? Zoom people, is that clear? Yeah. Okay, so this is the most important doctrines la pathina. Indoor management and constructive notice is the only important. This is one exception part. Now when by far so far if you have come, it looks like an Inception movie. Exception ke exception ke exception, like that how it is. But this is the last part and it's very easy. What this says is, in some cases there is an exception to indoor management also. For example, we'll read one by one. I'll explain with one example. You will be able to appreciate it better. For example, MOA la it is given that or a company loan எடுக்கலாம் அப்படினு கொடுத்திருக்கு. ஓகேயா? And அந்த கம்பெனில 5 board of directors இருக்காங்கன்னு வெச்சுக்கோ. There are 5 board of directors who are there in the company. Now who is going to give loan to the company? Now the 5th director is only going to give. Are you able to understand the story, guys? There are 5 directors. Who are the 5 directors? A, B, C, D, E are the 5 directors. கம்பெனிக்கு ஒரு 50 crores loan தேவைப்படுது. அது வந்து அவங்க வந்து பேங்க்குக்குலாம் போறதுக்கு பதிலா இந்த E என்ன சொல்றான்னா, நானே கொடுத்துடுறேன். I have 50 crores money, it's okay, I will give you as a loan அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு who is telling? E, who is one of the directors of the company, is telling. Now what is happening is, இந்த particular companyயோட AOA ல என்ன எழுதிருக்குன்னா, இப்போ ஒரு லோன் இந்த மாதிரி எந்த லோன் அப்ரூவ் பண்ணுனாலும் அட்லீஸ்ட் 3 directors should sign the approval agreement. That is, இது பண்ணலாம், இந்த லோனை வாங்கிக்கலாம் அப்படின்னு எத்தனை directors அட்லீஸ்ட் சைன் பண்ணியிருக்கணும்? 3 பேராச்சு சைன் பண்ணியிருக்கணும். எதில் எழுதியிருக்கு? AOA ல எழுதியிருக்கு. Who is going to give the loan? E is going to give the loan. Now E has given 50 crores. ஆனால் இந்த லோன் கொடுக்கலாம் அப்படிங்கிற அக்ரிமெண்ட்ல A and B 2 பேர் மட்டும் தான் சைன் போட்டிருக்காங்க. Now is this against the actual procedure? Procedure என்னது? எத்தனை பேர் சைன் போடணும் லோன் வாங்கணும்னா? 3 பேராச்சு சைன் போடணும் லோன் வாங்கணும்னா. ஆனால் எத்தனை பேர் தான் சைன் போட்டிருக்காங்க? 2 பேர் தான். 2 people have only signed it. Now ideally, is it an violation of the AOA? Yes, but if you studied the constructive notice and indoor management, what is indoor management saying? Avan loan vaangalama அப்படிங்கறதை MOA ல எழுதியிருக்கான்னு பாரு, and you just read the procedure in AOA and you can assume that the procedure would have been followed. So as per indoor management, can E say that எனக்கு இது தெரியவே தெரியாது, it is the company's problem பா, MOA ல லோன் கொடுக்கலாம் அப்படின்னு எழுதியிருக்கு, லோன் வாங்கலாம்னு எழுதியிருக்கு, நான் லோன் கொடுத்துருக்கேன், it is no more my problem அப்படின்னு can E say? Yes, ideally they can say, but the exception says that, if that person had the knowledge of irregularity. Now E is one of the board of directors, correct? Obviously he will know that if a loan has to be given, how many people has to sign? 3 people, and only 2 people have signed it. So he had the knowledge that there is an irregularity. Actually in the indoor management ஏன் பண்ணாங்க? Because outsiders ஆல daily வந்து board of directors மீட்டிங்ல உட்கார்ந்து பார்க்க முடியாது, 3 பேர் சைன் பண்றாங்களா 2 பேர் சைன் பண்றாங்களா. சோ அதனால நம்ம அவுட்சைடரை ப்ரொடெக்ட் பண்ணோம். ஆனா இந்த E, you are part of the board of directors, உனக்கு தெரியும் 3 பேர் சைன் போடணும், but 2 people have only signed, so you should have not even given the loan, right? Because you had knowledge of irregularity, but you still went and you gave the loan to that particular company. அப்படினா now can you protect yourself under indoor management? You cannot. Are you able to understand the first exception? Exception says yes, we will protect the outsiders. Procedural part எல்லாம் follow பண்ணிட்டாங்க நீ நினைச்சுக்கோ, that is okay, you don't have to every time come and check it. But if you had knowledge of irregularity, still you went forward with the contract, now is that contract void? Yes, it will become a void contract. We will not still protect E. Are you able to understand, guys? If you had knowledge of irregularity. I will come to forgery. Forgery is basically, for example, if the company has committed any fraud. Let's say ஏதோ ஒரு டைரக்டரோட சிக்னேச்சர் வந்து they forged it or something like that அப்படினா கூட this actually does not make much sense if you ask me, because if the company has done fraud, how can you give an exception for that? But still, for now the act has not changed. They are telling in case of forgery also the exception of indoor management will not apply. We will not protect the outsider. The company will only be protected. Next is negligence. Now, negligence and knowledge of irregularity are similar. The case study that we saw earlier, in that did E know that only 2 people have signed? He had knowledge of irregularity, but was he negligent? Yes. அவன் வந்து என்ன பண்ணிருக்கவே கூடாது, லோனை கொடுத்திருக்கவே கூடாது, but he was negligent and he gave the loan. So we are not going to protect E. He cannot be protected by the doctrine of indoor management. Are you able to understand? Next is, you cannot give an excuse that I did not have a knowledge of MOA and AOA. Because we are telling MOA and AOA is a public document. So you should have downloaded and read it. You cannot come and say that I did not have knowledge about the MOA and AOA. Are you able to understand? It's like you cannot like violate the signal and say that I did not know traffic rules, red we should not move. Like that you cannot say. It is assumed that you have a knowledge about it. Similarly, here it is assumed that you know what is written in MOA and AOA. You cannot tell that I do not have knowledge about MOA and AOA. Next is act outside the scope of apparent authority. For this, there is a case law. We'll look at that particular case law. There's this case law called Anand Bihari Lal versus Dinshaw Company. What basically happened here was, the company oda or particular property or accountant sold it to an outsider. Now, if any person with little bit of common sense will know, can accountant have the right or authority to sell company's land? No. Who should sell? Either the board of directors should sell, or the founders or owners or chairmen of the company only can sell. If an accountant is signing a piece of paper and telling that now this company's land is yours, can you accept it? No. So this particular doctrine says that if there is something apparent from the authority, for accountant pathale, it is assumed that it is not in his authority that he can sell a piece of land of the company. So it was outside the apparent scope of the person, but you still entered into a contract with him. What this particular guy did was, he bought the land of the company, and who signed for that? The accountant. Okay, but now the court says that accountant la sign panna land alla vikka mudiyuma. The owner should only sign, right? The board of directors should sign. So you cannot go and buy that land from an accountant and pay him and tell that protect me by indoor management. No, that will not apply. This basically says that use your common sense. Okay, that's what it's all about. So did you understand all the exception, guys? Indoor management usually protects the outsider or company. It protects the outsider, right? Indoor management protects the outsider. However, in the following cases, the outsiders will not be protected. In case they had knowledge of the irregularity, they knew something is wrong, still they continued with the contract, we are not going to protect them. In case they were negligent, but still they were negligent. In case there is any forgery that is happening in the company, and next is, you cannot say that I do not have knowledge of the MOA and AOA. And last is, if it is outside the scope of apparent authority. Are you able to understand, guys? Now we have one more case law, which is a significant case law. We'll read it. We'll just take a 10 seconds breather, and if there's any doubts, you can just put it and I'll quickly answer that. Okay. Before I go to this particular case law, I'll also discuss the answer for yesterday's question, okay? In case people who have tried attempting the question, I'll discuss quickly the answer for our yesterday's question, practice question, which had been uploaded for you. For people whom it was not uploaded, I will just dictate it for you. Just give me a minute. Did all of you try doing yesterday's question? No? You guys are H batch, no? Yesterday I put in the batch also. But you still didn't do. I'll just quickly write the question here, okay? because I cannot present it. I want until then people who have already written the answers, you please be ready with what were the keywords that you wrote. Okay, and people in the chat box, I mean in the Zoom, you can just let me know. I'll just quickly write the question. And then we have the last few segments of this particular chapter. Okay, it's almost done, the Companies Act. Okay, I'll also tell you that I will cover everything in Companies Act. I still have the registration part, which is very procedural, which I'll cover in 5-10 minutes. Okay, and then what I'll not be covering is that types of share capital that is there, no? I think that and all you can itself read, no? There's authorized share capital, subscribed and all of this, nominal, these things and all you can itself read, but if you still have a doubt, you can ask me. Because that's very basic, I'm not covering that. Anyway, in my notes, it's added. If you want to read that much, it is very sufficient. They'll not ask much practical questions in that. Do you guys have a specific question bank that you use? What do you use? Scanner. Okay. You have something, then fine. Okay, so this was the question that was posted, okay. What do you mean by companies with charitable purpose under the Companies Act 2013? Mention the conditions of the issue and revocation of the license of such company by the government. So here, basically, if you ask me how many marks this was for, it was asked for 6 marks. I want to know how did you frame your answer, because this is a complete theoretical question. There is no practical, even the analysis panno, the provisions, the facts of the case, like that, there's nothing. It's full a practical question. That is direct theory question that you'll have to write. One all we'll write for 6 marks. Sorry? Okay. First you define a Section 8 company. Then conditions of? What are the conditions? Okay. Won't you cover that in the definition itself? What will you write? Okay, first part is correct. A lot of you telling you will define what is a Section 8 company. That will barely have 2 marks. But when you say you're going to write the definition, you need to write full, that arts, commerce, all of that. You need to write all of that, okay? Then only you'll get marks. Then condition for registration, okay. What is the condition for registration? Seri, adanda definition. Adhe thirum solranga. Perfect. When you say conditions, what are the other 2 points you will write? If I was the examiner, first I will see whether definition you are able to write. Most of the students will be able to write it. Okay, it's a very easy definition. Second thing I'll see is whether you have written the point that they cannot distribute their profit, and basically that means they cannot give a dividend. If this is there, if that's an additional good point, even if I missed 1 or 2, maybe I can give you an edge, because this a lot of students will miss out to write, and this is a part of your answer key. Okay, next, what will you write? First you need to write issue, no conditions for issuing. If you have to if you have to get a Section 8 company status, what you should do? First apply for a license. I will see whether you have written the word, you have to apply to the ROC, or at least ROC lana kuda central government apply pannano. Appadinachu unak theriyudha. That much at least I will test in CA foundation level, and then you can write about if who can revoke it abdina. If you have written RD, great about it. Otherwise also you can write just central government. If you forget also, you can just write central government and leave it. Then I will see whether you have written the conditions when it can be revoked, either if it is due to fraud, violation of objective, இந்த மாதிரி அந்த மூணு conditions இருக்கு, அது எழுதிருக்கியான்னு பார்ப்பேன். So I will give this around 2 marks. This backspace. I'll give this 2 marks. If you have written this point, which is great, I would have given you 1 mark. Then for writing these conditions for issue and violation, another 2 marks. 5 marks for that. And last I would give you for revocation. If you revoke, what are the 3 things you can do? You can either amalgamate, or you can go for winding up, or you have to add the word private limited or limited. Are you able to understand? If this was there in your answer that you wrote yesterday, whatever practice question if you have done, and ideally the time given to write this is 12 minutes, but you should be, at least you should double the minute, okay? If it's a 6 mark question, you should be able to do it in 12 minutes. But again, if you are able to, if you are having a speed of at least 5.5 minutes, you are able to complete, you're good to go. Okay, with writing you will get that speed, but at least these keywords should have been there. Okay, so what you do is, whenever from today onwards, from the 3rd day then that you're doing your practice question, whenever you write, after you write, please compare it with the suggested. Okay, even if I have not given, for us and all, we used to have question banks. If you don't have a question bank, it's okay. If you have a scanner, then maybe go ahead with a scanner. Illa edume illana ICI textbook la and the topic keela ennala points எழுதி இருக்கு அப்படினு பாரு. அதுல how much are you able to remember and reproduce, you should see. If you're not reproducing any point, I used to maintain a separate notebook for this. In the regular classes we do that as a practice. In the separate notebook, in your black pen you of course write your solutions. In red you underline or circle this, so that before the day of exam I used to only go through this. So what a lot of toppers do is, they make something called a mistake journal. I made this in my CA final. I used to have every subject, AFM ko a mistake journal, FR ko mistake journal. Ella time or SAP exam or any other mock exam they are writing, எழுதுனதுக்கு அப்புறம் இதெல்லாம் நான் mistakes பண்ணேன் அப்படினு சொல்லி you should write it. So நான் எக்ஸாம்க்கு போறதுக்கு முன்னாடி எல்லா டாபிக்லயும் அப்படியே இருக்கும். இப்போ மியூச்சுவல் ஃபண்ட்ஸ்ல நான் இந்த மிஸ்டேக்ஸ்லாம் பண்ணேன். Okay, or for example security valuation la indha mistakes la panna. So in exam, every time you write a mock, you can make new mistakes. That is okay, but you're not supposed to repeat the same mistake. Last time in the assumption marandu poida, indha tharavi marandu poida, adunala sum tappu. Then why the hell are you even writing mock exams? The purpose is you should rectify your mistakes, right? You cannot repeat the same mistake. So you make something called a mistake journal. So these are small things. I have it in my other iPad. This is not mine, so I'm not able to share with you. I have a lot of class notes on the mind. These mistake journals are very useful. Okay, where I used to write a lot of mistakes. Adla vandhu ipo moonavathu thara nee paakumbodhu you will remember. Adla na eppadi eluduvena, ipo nee paathinale unoda book la vandhu there are no lot of sums. Ipo if you look at the law particular book, maximum 500 questions da irukum. This I'm telling maximum. Idile nee repeat question, duplicate, direct question la remove pantina, unoda full law la 7 act layume setha kuda 200 questions ku mela varadu. Okay, அதுலயும் நீ ABC கேட்டகரி பண்ணி வச்சிட்டோன்னு வெச்சுக்கோ, உனக்கு எக்ஸாம்க்கு முன்னாடி effectively 50 to 70 questions தான் இருக்கும். இதையே நீ 4 தடவை அட்லீஸ்ட் ரிவைஸ் பண்ணிட்டனா, when you see it before exam you will have familiarity. That's why when I tell don't keep switching between materials is because one thing that you will get when you repeat revisions with the same material is familiarity with those pages. If for example a lot of people have a good photo memory. If I don't know if you guys have it, but எனக்கு எப்படினா if நான் அந்த பேஜ் ஓத பார்த்துட்டேனா எனக்கு இந்த பேஜ்ல அட்லீஸ்ட் இங்க மேல தான் அந்த கான்செப்ட் இருக்குனா I'll be able to recall an exam. That is because அத வெச்சே நம்ம 4 தடவை படிச்சிருக்கோம். So that photo memory won't come when you keep changing materials. In the revision ku na vandha ICA material use panna, next revision ku na ma'am kudutha PPT use பண்ணுவேன், next revision no. So fix, that's why I told 2-3 months before exam you need to finally fix that this is my QB question bank that I'm going to use, this is my concept note. You're not supposed to switch. Okay, if it is very so that's why I'm telling you 3 months before you decide. You ask your friends, you ask your seniors, who is that person whose book if I rely on is the best. Abdin solte nee ketuko, you do your market research and buy that book, or if you have nothing, best is ICI. Okay, I would not even say buy my book or anything. Okay, ICI and ICI website le there's one more thing called Saransh, which is basically like a summary notes. It's freely downloadable, which is basically இந்த மாதிரி charts are concept maps லாம் சொல்லுவாங்கல, concept map. There are all freely ICI is uploading for you. Basically how do we faculties take, we'll also take from that only, and நாங்க வந்து சும்மா டிசைன்லாம் மாத்திடுவோம். I'm telling you what it is practically, and we sell it. It's of no use. Are you able to understand? If you really have so much money, then you buy my notebook. I don't have any problem. It's revenue for me. But you can easily, freely download it, go to a printout shop, pay 2 rupees per page, take a printout and have it. It's called Saransh, okay? ICL or if you go to the BOS website, no, they'll have it there. That and your material that you're using. That is your ICI material is more than sufficient, okay? But ICI material is very voluminous. That's one naal munadi padikka mudiyadhu. So one naal munadikku you need an ideal material which had around 200 to 150 pages. Yella subject ko I'm telling you this from your CA foundation till your CA final. Remember your final day material, concept note. Either you prepare it by your own self or you're going to rely on any other faculty or authors. 200 to 150 பேஜுக்கு மேலே கான்செப்ட் நோட் இருக்கக்கூடாது. அது எந்த சப்ஜெக்டாக வேணாலும் இருக்கட்டும், ஆடிட்டாக இருக்கட்டும், எதுவாக இருக்கட்டும். நான் ஃபைனல்லையோ இன்டர்மீடியேட்டில் படித்த எல்லா கான்செப்ட் நோட்டுமே மேக்ஸிமம் 250 பேஜஸ். அப்படின்னா தான் உன்னால் படிக்க முடியும். அதர்வைஸ் how you will revise 500 pages? I will make a book for 1000 pages also. How you will revise before exam? And as I told you one thing, I learned this from some of the interviews I've seen of one of the UPSC aspirants, and he said anything that I know I cannot read one day before exam, I'll not even read it before also. Because it's a waste of time. At least for you, it's not like that. For UPSC, they have a volume of syllabus. At least for you, we are telling you in the chapter, they can ask from anything. So for him, the scope is very wide. So he told that if there's something that I cannot revise before exam, I'll not do it even now. That same thing applies for you. Don't randomly keep switching between materials. Okay, this is something I'm telling you even for my material. I'll suggest you to use my material if you have done with me my regular class. Then only you will have familiarity, because 10 times I'm revising in revision only. Then how many times I would have revised in regular? Then it is useful. But otherwise now if you switch it, you will only get confused because you have studied with some other material. Your friends are telling you use ICI. Somebody is telling you use RTP, MTP. Don't do all of that. Download Saransh from ICI website, which is basically a summary of all the units that are there, and keep your ICI main material. If you are somebody who has the habit of making self notes, then great. But now it's a little too late to sit and make your own notes. You won't have time. Time notes that's really, maybe you started from your intermediate that you have self notes. Okay, so now don't go ahead with only 2 materials. Keep reading those 2 materials again and again. The more you read and you create that photo memory, it will be easy for theory papers. For practical, it's okay. Nee sums na practice pannu. Practical you should have master questions. Okay, in theory you should have a good material. Practical you will have good questions. ஒரு 10 question இருந்தா கூட இந்த questionஸ்க்கு மேல இப்போ வந்து இந்த questionல practice பண்ணனா final accountsல இத தவிர எதுவுமே இல்ல. எல்லா adjustmentsம் இதுல இருக்கு. In our times they used to give. If you attended Sarasa's class, he used to give you அந்த மாதிரி master questions. அதுல எல்லா adjustmentsமே இருக்கும். Okay, if I have those holes, I'll maybe give it to the admin people. They can upload it for you in BRS or bills of exchange and all. They'll have master questions. இதுக்கு மேல அதுல adjustment இல்லனா அந்த ஒரு question practice பண்ணாலே போதும். Like that you need to have for practical papers. For maths, I don't know, don't even ask me. Okay, I forgot. For accounts, it's like that. For economics, you have to just see concepts. It's very easy. So plan it accordingly, okay? So if you have written all of this in your yesterday's practice question, you're good to go. Now, you just make a mark of it, okay? And yesterday also, a lot of people sent me your answers. I couldn't see all of them. But the ones that I saw, common mistakes, you're not underlining what you're writing. You're writing huge paragraphs, which examiner is not interested in reading. So I want you to change that and write in pointers. Pointersly, you need to write subtitles. Like, when in the bari question, but when the provision, analysis, and there should be a title. Provision adukapra 3 line, adukapra facts of the case 3 line. Apdi you should have subtopics to your answer. Okay, so these are the common mistakes I saw in the questions that you send me. Make sure you correct them. Moving on to the last case law for today, and then we have the procedural part. Okay, we'll finish off with the last case law first, which is Royal British Bank versus Turkant. Okay, it's also known as the Turkant rule or the Turkant law. Basically, this is a name of a person. Okay, he was basically a liquidator. You know who's a liquidator? At the time of, what does he actually do? What is the role of a liquidator at the time of winding up? Sorry? sell the assets and settle the liability. What is the role of a liquidator? He will see what and all liabilities are there and he will arrange it in the order of, we studied yesterday, secured debt first varum, adukapra unsecured, adukapra shareholders, adukapra last equity, and the mari liabilities arrange pannittu he will sell the assets, whatever money he is able to recover he will settle all the liabilities. So this particular guy, that is Turkant, was appointed as a liquidator for a company. That company took a loan from the Royal British Bank. That company took a loan from the Royal British Bank. So that is what is written here. In this particular case, a doctrine of indoor management was established. Why it was established, we'll see it later. Company's board of directors took a loan from the bank beyond their borrowing power. What do you mean by beyond their borrowing power? They were not supposed to take it, but they still went ahead and took that loan. Now, will that be written in the MOA and AOA? Whatever is there. For example, company can only take a loan of maximum 100 crores. Will these details be written in MOA? Usually it will be written. Okay, maybe you guys have not seen a real MOA. Just go and download today. And the objective clause mattu 4 pages kirko, because they'll make it very exhaustive. Because you cannot go and frequently update the MOA. So they will make it very exhaustive. But Reliance oda MOA la pathina objective clause or 5 page kirko. Because they are into almost everything, right? They are into retail, they are into oil extraction, they are into jewelry, they are into everything. So MOA, they have almost written everything. Even banking related stuffs and all are also written there. Maybe they are not there currently, maybe if they decide to come in future, right? So MOAs are very exhaustive. So here, the company has entered or taken a loan from this Royal British Bank, which was beyond their borrowing power. So borrowing power and the rule enna, board of directors mattu sonna pattadu, they need to get the approval of the shareholders also. So what was written there? In the MOA, it was written that you need to get an additional approval from the shareholders also if you want to take the loan. But what did the company do? They took a loan, but they did not take the approval of the shareholders. That means they did something which was beyond their capacity. Are you able to understand? Here, the shareholders' approval was not taken, and when the company went into liquidation, the liquidator denied the repayment of the loan to the bank, saying that it is ultra vires and hence it is null and void. Are you able to understand what did Turkant say to the bank, Royal British Bank? He said, you have entered into a contract. That contract itself is null and void. For that, the court, however, directed the company to repay back the loan to the Royal British Bank. Being an outsider, they cannot be expected to know about the internal irregularities. Now, Royal British Bank will read the MOA, they will read the AOA. Adla enna kuduthirukku, loan maangalan kuduthirukku, but additional loan maangna, you have to get an approval of the shareholders also. Appdin solli எழுதிருக்கு. The MOA and AOA has it. Now, will the bank go and sit in the board meeting and see whether the shareholders have approved? That is not possible. Can they assume that they would have approved? Yes. So here the doctrine of indoor management will protect the Royal British Bank, and that's what the court also said, that the bank will be protected and Turkant is supposed to pay whatever settlement amount has to go for the bank. Are you able to understand this case law? So this is the last case law. Ma'am, there are so many other case laws that are mentioned. Some are just mentioned in your book. Okay, adukku explanation la kuda kadayadu. The ones that do not have an explanation, you don't have to read it from the examination point of view. All the major and important case laws I have already covered for you in class. Are you okay, guys? Now we'll read the last part, which is the procedural part. I think just 1 second. I think that version of I think that version of the PPT has not come here. Just give me a second. You can post your doubts in that meanwhile, guys. I'll just pull out that PPT and then we'll finish that last 5 minutes and leave, okay? So that you're completed with Companies Act completely. Okay, now is this just your preparation done? No, you have to go and self-read the chapter once again, okay? Importantly, you have to remember the definitions and all of that. And now I can tell you one thing, question bank pathina, you will be able to solve all questions. Okay, but question bank, ma'am, I have to go and sit and practice every question, not really required. Now, when you're doing your first round of revision, you need to do elimination of questions. What you have to do? You need to do elimination of questions. What you need to do is, if you read any direct question like differentiation between MOA, AOA, adala you can directly cut. ஒரு தடவை பார்த்துக்கோ, then you don't need to practice it again, right? So அந்த மாதிரி I want you, if there are 50 questions given in Companies Act, you should at least reduce and bring it to a 25 to 30. Okay, I remember I told you that ABC analysis, do that and keep it in your book itself. Okay. Just 1 second, we'll just finish. I don't know if I can transfer it in this particular iPad, so I'll just quickly write it down also here, okay, along with explaining so that it's easier for you guys. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to quickly see the process of incorporating a company. It's very, very easy. Whenever you have to incorporate a company, previously there were different processes. Maybe if you have learnt under the other previous material use panina, appola there were different processes. Now it's a very simple process. You need to fill something called a SPICE plus INC 32. Okay, there are two forms that are there, SPICE plus INC 32. This is the form that you have to fill. In the form la basica enna kepanga, first you need to tell the name of the company. First you need to reserve the name of the company. ஒரு கம்பெனிக்கு எப்படி நேம் ரிசர்வ் பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா, அட்லீஸ்ட் நீ வந்து 2 நேம்ஸோட ஆப்ஷனை வந்து அப்லோட் பண்ணும் MCA வெப்சைட்டில். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் இப்போலாம் வந்து இன்டர்நெட்லேயே நீ தேடலாம். If you have, I don't know what that website is called, you can just put a particular name. For example, I want to start my own consulting firm, DCS, let's say Deepika Consulting Services. If I want to start, I can put it in the internet and see whether there's any existing company with the same name. If a same name is there, then I can't use it, right? I need to go for some other name. Okay, like that you have to give at least 2 names to the ROC. They will see if that name is not repeated in the records. avanga kitta illana avanga vandu ungalku and name allot panniduvanga. So you give your first preference and then you give your second preference. They'll go and look at it and then they will give you all of these details by where you will fill. SPICE plus INC 32 is the form in which you will fill. Munadla idukla tani forms irundhudu. Now they have simplified the whole process. They have made it much more easier. In the form it will ask all details, one shot you can fill it. Okay, and then you need to give your application for incorporation. Adoda, let's say if directors are the first directors, you know, the first subscribers of the company, they need to give their PAN details. You know what's a PAN? Permanent account number, right? You need to give your PAN details, and in case it's an existing company, only want to change the name, you also need to add something called the TAN. TAN is nothing but the tax details of that particular company. They'll have a special number for the company. That also you have to give. And first time directors appoint பண்ணும்போது maximum எவ்வளோ directors appoint பண்ணலாம்? 3 directors. Maximum how many directors you can appoint? 3 directors. Maximum 3 people க்கு தான் நீ என்ன வாங்க முடியும்? You can buy something called the DIN. You know what's a DIN? A DIN number, director's identification number. Like you've heard what is a SIN, at least SIN you know. No, company identification number. If you go, if it's a regular batch, I would have opened MCA website and showed it to you. You go to your home and just try, okay? MCA website la ponina MCA services அப்படினு ஒரு drop down இருக்கும். அதுல click பண்ணினா உனக்கு ரிலையன்ஸ் பத்தி ஏதாவது தெரியணும்னு வெச்சுக்கோ. ரிலையன்ஸோட SIN number ஒன்னு இருக்கும். Ma'am, how will I get the SIN number? Just go to the internet and type a SIN number of Reliance. Ipo how you have a roll number in your school, like that every company will be given a roll number. And the roll number நீ போய் type பண்ண MCA website na Reliance oda எல்லா detailsமே வரும். When was it incorporated? Who are the directors? What are the charges against the companies? MOA, AOA, financial statements எல்லாமே you can see if you apply the SIN number. So first நீ company வந்து ஆரம்பிக்கும்போது இந்த SPICE plus INC 32 formல நீ வந்து companyயோட name reserve பண்ணிக்கணும். PAN and TAN details அதுல கொடுக்கணும். Then maximum 3 பேருக்கு நீ என்ன பண்ணலாம்? DIN number வாங்கிக்க முடியும். What is a DIN number? A director's identification number. Ma'am, எனக்கு வந்து 3க்கு மேல directors வேணும்னா first initially you apply for 3 people. Once the company is incorporated, again you can take an application and get one more DIN number if you want more than 3 directors. But initially DIN number will be allotted for 3 directors. DIN number will be allotted. In a SPICE plus INC 32 will be in 2 parts. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பார்ட்ல நீ உன்னோட பேரெல்லாம் ரிசர்வ் பண்ணிக்கணும். அதை ரிசர்வ் பண்ணி முடிஞ்சதுக்கப்புறம் இந்த TAN, PAN and this 3 DIN numbers-லாம் you can get it. These are very procedural. They usually don't ask. Just for your knowledge, we are telling at foundation level. Okay. Practically, if you do only, you will understand. Okay. There's something, there's one more topic also. I'll just tell. If you understand, you remember. Otherwise, it's a very big topic. Practically, the kaatna da puriyum. Now, because of lack of time, I'll not be able to show it. There's something called as Agile Pro, which is also another form number. INC35 னு சொல்லிட்டு இட்ஸ் கால் அஜைல் ப்ரோ. இந்த அஜைல் ப்ரோல வந்து இப்போ நான் சொன்னல they have simplified the entire process. இப்போ வந்து நீ வந்து தனியா ஃபர்ஸ்ட் கம்பெனி இன்கார்ப்பரேட் பண்ணி அதுக்கப்புறம் தனியா போய் வந்து GST நம்பர் வாங்குறதுக்கு பதிலா இந்த அஜைல் ப்ரோவை ஃபில் பண்ணாலே உனக்கு கம்பெனி இன்கார்ப்பரேட் பண்ணும்போது என்ன கிடைச்சிடும், you will get your GST நம்பர். இப்போ நீ நிறைய ரெஸ்டாரண்ட்ஸ்குள்ள ஒரு ஷோரூம்ஸ்குள்ளலாம் போனீங்கன்னா they would have the GST நம்பர் in the entrance itself, correct? அந்த GST நம்பரை நீ வந்து தனியா GST வெப்சைட்ல போய் அப்ளை பண்ணி வாங்குறதுக்கு பதிலா ஒன் ஷாட் இந்த ஃபார்மை ஃபில் பண்ணாலே இன்கார்ப்பரேட் பண்ணும்போதே you can get a GST number. For that you need to fill the INC35 which is called the Agile Pro. அதே மாதிரி நீ ஒரு கம்பெனி ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன்னா எம்ப்ளாய் ப்ராவிடென்ட் ஃபண்ட் நீ ஒரு அக்கவுண்ட் ஓபன் பண்ணு, கரெக்ட்டா? அந்த EPF அக்கவுண்ட்டுக்குமே நீ என்ன பண்ணலாம், அப்ளிகேஷனை இந்த ஃபார்ம்லயே ஃபில் பண்ணி போட்டுடலாம். பேசிக்கலி கம்பெனிக்கு என்னெல்லாம் தேவையோ அதெல்லாம் ஒரே இடத்துல. இப்போ நீ வந்து இதுக்கு தனியா வந்து PF வெப்சைட்ல போய் பண்ணும், GSTக்கு தனியா GST வெப்சைட்ல போய் பண்ணும். இதுக்கு பதிலா என்ன பண்றேன்னா ஒரே ஃபார்ம் கிரியேட் பண்ணி நீங்க எங்களுக்கு கொடுத்துருங்க, எனிவே எல்லாமே MCAக்கு கீழே தானே வருது, நாங்க அந்தந்த டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்க்கு அனுப்பிச்சு உங்களுக்கு வாங்கி கொடுத்துடுறோம் அப்படின்னு they are saying. Are you able to understand? GST number. And let's say you want to open a bank account. For that also you can fill the details here. And the last is if you want to get something called a professional tax. ப்ரொஃபஷனல் டேக்ஸ் வந்து நீ பே பண்ணணும்னா அதுக்கு ஒரு ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் வாங்கணும். எப்படி GSTக்கு ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் வாங்கணுமோ அந்த மாதிரி ப்ரொஃபஷனல் டேக்ஸ்க்கு ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் வாங்கணும். இது எல்லாமே தனித்தனியாக அவங்கவுங்க வெப்சைட்டில் போய் அப்ளை பண்ணுறதுக்கு பதிலாக நீ கம்பெனி இன்கார்பரேட் பண்ணும் போதே அஜைல் ப்ரோன்னு ஃபார்ம் நம்பர் INC35 ஃபில் பண்ணனா you will get all this in one shot. Are you able to understand? This is practically you will understand it when you actually go and see in some company. Okay, as a part of your stat review you will be doing it. Other than that nothing much is important. Only other points are if you are an OPC additionally நீ என்ன fill பண்ணனும்னா SPICE plus INC32ல நீ additionally நாமினிக்கு அந்த ஒரு consent form சொன்னோம்ல, நாமினி வந்து நான் நாமினியா இருக்கேன்னு சொல்லி சைன் பண்ணி கொடுக்கறான்ல, அந்த ஃபார்மை நீ additionally அட்டாச் பண்ணனும், நாமினி consent form. இதே நீ வந்து ஒரு செக்ஷன் 8 கம்பெனி அப்படின்னா நீ அடிஷ்னலா உன்னோட லைசன்ஸ் உனக்கு என்ன கிடைச்சிருக்கும், you would have been given a license, right? அதை அட்டாச் பண்ணும். If you are a sectoral company, now what is a sectoral company and all of that is a separate discussion altogether. Just remember there are some special types of company. அந்த மாதிரி if you are a sectoral company அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு வந்து நீ you need to attach a NOC. செக்டாரல் கம்பெனினா பேசிக்காக வந்து இப்போ சில செக்டார்ஸ்லாம் கவர்மெண்ட் வந்து அவங்க மட்டும் தான் இருக்கணும்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் முன்னாடிலாம் வந்து பெட்ரோலியம் செக்டாரில் வந்து யார் வேணாலும் போய் அந்த க்ரூட் ஆயில் எக்ஸ்ட்ராக்ஷன் பண்ண முடியாது. அதுக்கப்புறம் they opened it for private sectors also. For example, இன்னைக்கு railways. Can a private company start its own railway line? It's not possible because it's only with public. அந்த மாதிரி சில செக்டர்ஸ்லாம் வந்து கவர்மெண்ட் மட்டும் தான் வச்சிருப்பாங்க. அதில் கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சம் ப்ரொவிஷன்ஸ் இருக்கும். இப்போ நீ வந்து அதில் வந்து இப்போ ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் பெட்ரோல்னு வச்சுக்கோ, மேஜர்லி எக்ஸ்ட்ராக்டட் பை கவர்மெண்ட், பட் ப்ரைவேட் பிளேயர்ஸ் லைக் ரிலையன்ஸ்லாம் கூட பண்ணணும்னா they can do it, but they need to get a special permission. அந்த மாதிரி நீ ஒரு செக்டாரல் கம்பெனி ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன்னா கவர்மெண்ட் கிட்டேருந்து உனக்கு ஒரு நோ அப்ஜெக்ஷன் சர்டிஃபிகேட் வரணும். தட் எங்களுக்கு எந்த அப்ஜெக்ஷனும் இல்லை, நாங்களும் பண்ணுறோம், நீனும் இந்த கம்பெனியை ரன் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு நீ ஒரு NOC நோ அப்ஜெக்ஷன் சர்டிஃபிகேட்டை அடிஷ்னலாக அட்டாச் பண்ணும். Are you able to understand? These are just some additional procedures. Okay, நீ இந்த SPICE plus INC Agile Pro தவிர OPCனா நீ வந்து நாமினி அந்த கன்சென்ட் ஃபார்மை இன்னும் சப்மிட் பண்ணும். செக்ஷன் 8னா உன்னோட லைசன்ஸ் அடிஷ்னலாக சப்மிட் பண்ணும். அண்ட் நீ செக்டோரல் கம்பெனினா ஒரு நோ அப்ஜெக்ஷன் சர்டிஃபிகேட்டை யூ ஹேவ் டு சப்மிட் இட் அடிஷ்னலி. ஒன்ஸ் யூ கம்ப்ளீட் ஆல் திஸ் ப்ராசஸ் within 30 days, if all the proof, ID proofs and everything is correct, you will get your incorporation certificate. The day you get your incorporation certificate is date when your company comes into existence. Okay, so that is the like basically how your birth certificate is. For a company, a birth certificate is its incorporation certificate. Okay, this is a very detailed procedure. If you go and read in your book, they have given it very simplistically. They have not used any form numbers or anything. I just told you in case you need it practically tomorrow. For in exam, if you don't mention form numbers and all, they don't cut marks. But whenever you mention form number ஞாபகம் இல்ல or எழுதல அப்படினா you should write as per prescribed from. As per prescribed form. If you do not know any form number, in foundation level mostly you do not need to write form numbers, but even in intermediate, if you anytime forget writing a form number, you can write as per the prescribed form. Abdini eludite, you can just continue. Indala submit pannu abdin solittu you can continue writing your answer. Okay, so that was whole of Companies Act. I told you I left a small portion which is the types of capital, because I think you have already done it in detail in your accountancy, so I'm not repeating and wasting time for you guys. So today try reading if the Companies Act if possible. Otherwise tomorrow one day you should be a maximum another 3 to 4 hours you should be able to completely wind up this chapter. And I've seen the SAP paper also. If you have done the classes really well, if you have done with me 4 days, you should be able to comfortably manage all the questions. Okay, I did not set the paper, I only reviewed what the paper was. It was pretty easy if you ask me. If you just go through the concepts that we did in the last 4 days, you will be able to crack the paper, right? So all the best. I'll also be reviewing your SAP marks, okay, once you write it on Sunday. If you have any doubts in today or tomorrow before you write your SAP, you can reach out to me. Yeah, so that's all for today. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you. People who had doubts, okay, with earlier topics you posted and I couldn't answer, you can just repost it, okay? I'll just answer doubts that these Zoom people have. And I hope you guys understood the Zoom live class. Though you were not here online, I hope, not in the physical class, I hope you were able to understand all concepts. Dinesh, you can just message me regarding this. Dinesh, I just saw your message. You can just message me, okay? I cannot fully type here. You can just send me a message, Dinesh, and I'll just voice note, I'll just send, okay, if that's okay. Somebody has asked, can an OPC company invest their shares in a public company? Yes, they can. There's no specific invest their shares in a public company, or can they invest in the shares of a public company? I didn't understand your question. Who's called subscribers to the memorandum? They are basically the first members of the companies are called subscribers. Yeah. Actually, you're which G batch, right? I'll just tell them. Okay, I'm part of a couple of batches. I'll just ask once, okay? Okay. Which batch? The batch. Okay, but May joined or June? June. I just talk with them. Maybe if you guys can. I think he also has a question bank, right? He just has a summary. Okay, there's no question bank. Okay, then maybe I'll suggest you something. Or if I think here they don't give you scanners. No. Okay, then maybe they didn't prescribe as of now. They say in around 7 days our portions are getting over, and then they will tell you. Okay, then maybe they have planned something for you. If they don't specifically give you a question bank, you just ask me and refer you something. Because yes, if they are planning to give you a scanner, I don't want to confuse. Okay, thanks so much. Any doubts, guys? I'll just quickly look into the doubts. I think Padmashri, I've answered your doubt, right? Subscribers who are subscribers to the Sibyl, can you conduct a class just for solving questions? Yeah, I can maybe ask that, okay? We'll plan if I can conduct a class just for solving the questions. Maybe we'll plan that. Practice questions. Yeah, I will add myself in batch D, okay? I am not a part of batch D yet. I'll add myself in that WhatsApp group and I'll send you those practice questions. I'll send you for people who do not get batch D and batch G, I'll add myself to that group and start sharing from today. Can I explain what's a listed company? Yeah, a listed company is basically, 1 second, I'll just pull out the notes so that it's easier. Okay. For people who do not understand what's a listed company, guys, listed company na onnume illa avangaloda securities vande idhaadu recognized stock exchange la vande list aayirukano. But there are some exceptions to that. What are the exceptions? Na, if only your non-convertible debentures are listed, unoda non-convertible debentures mattu list aayirukna, nee listed company kadayadu. Unoda redeemable preference shares mattu list aayirukna, nee listed company kadayadu. If you are basically na nethiki class la enna sonna, அல்டிமேட்டா ஒரு ஷார்ட்கட் இதை எப்படி ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கனா, ஈக்விட்டி ஷேர்ஸ் லிஸ்டட்னா மட்டும்தான் நீ என்னது லிஸ்டட் கம்பெனி. யூ கேன் ஃப்ரீலி லிஸ்ட் யுவர் நான் கன்வெர்ட்டபிள் டிபென்ச்சர்ஸ், பட் ஸ்டில் யூ வில் நாட் பி கால்ட் as a listed company. Are you able to understand the exceptions, guys? For people who are asking what is a listed company? Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. Can I close? People who didn't receive questions, I will just add myself to those respective groups and share the question from today onwards. Yeah, and I'll share the yesterday and day before yesterday's question also. Can I explain doctrine of ultra wires? Yeah, it's very easy, guys. It basically means that company வந்து அவங்க ஸ்கோப்புக்கு வெளில இருக்கிற எதையுமே பண்ண முடியாது. That is MOAக்கு வெளில ஏதாவது நீ பண்ண அப்படின்னா it will be void in nature. That is what doctrine of ultra wires says. Can you suggest a question bank? You can just send me a message and I'll answer for that. Okay, you have my number, right? You guys can just send me a message. So I'm closing, guys. Thank you so much for the day. All the best. Thank you.